All right, we are live and in full effect. And give me 1 second. I just want to say I give very special thanks to my friends. But before I get started with thanking my friends, I want to talk about what this is. So first of all, this is not a symposium. Second of all, this is not what we did a couple weeks ago, which was a more formal celebration of the Sign of the Times Super Deluxe box set. But this is what I'm calling the after salon. I couldn't call it the after party because we're not partying. I really maybe some of us are partying. But I'll just play. And then also I didn't want to call it the after show because we weren't having any concerts, and I was like, what could I call this? And I didn't want to call it a podcast because it's not audio. And then I was like, what's the point of this? This is basically, I wanted to get my friends together, and if I could, I would teleport them to my living room right now so we could all be in person. And we would just be hanging out in my living room talking about this amazing box set, because that's what I do during normal times, not in a pandemic. And I wish that I would have grown up during the Harlem Renaissance, because I heard that there were a lot of salons during those times, Harlem salons, where all these incredible people would be in the same room, having fun and all that. So I was like, I think I want to call this the after salon, just so everybody kind of understands that this is very informal. We have very distinct opinions, particularly if you've ever listened to the Grown Folks Music Podcast, you will know that we are not aligned. So this is not about a kumbaya agreement. But what's really cool about it is that, people find Prince through different songs, through different eras, and it's all love. We love talking about Prince. We love debating about Prince. There's, nothing but, good vibes. Even when we don't agree on things, we still love one another. So I want to welcome Arthur, who has just joined us.
Hey.
And is really committed because he's out there in Arizona. It's like 8 a.m. in the morning. So that's commitment for you.
Yes. Yes, it is.
That's commitment for you. So for those of you who don't know, my name is D'Angela Duff, and my Twitter handle is Polished Solid, and I've been doing these symposia, but I also do podcasts with Grown Folks Music, the Prince and Prince-related podcasts. And I've actually been missing doing those podcasts because of the symposia. The symposia have been taking a lot of my time. And so normally Ivan and Ricky and I would be talking about albums, and we often have, well, not often, but several times Arthur has joined us. And in other occasions, we've had Jahan, who's another member of the Music Snobs. For those of you who don't know, Arthur is one of the Music Snobs, which is actually the podcast where I wanted to start podcasting in the first place. So for me, the Music Snobs podcast is the bar above the bar. So, and I begged and pleaded with Jahan. I was like, please. And he was like, no, but I understand. And the reason why I really wanted Jahan here is because Ricky, Ivan, Arthur, and Jahan, we've already done a podcast for the Sign of the Times album.
2 parts, right? Was it 2 parts?
Yeah, it was 2 parts. It was a very long conversation. So during these 5 consecutive Saturdays where we're going to be deconstructing the Sign of the Times Super Deluxe box set, we might talk about, the original album, but that's not the focus of this because we've already done that. So if you go find the Grown Folks Music Podcast Network, which is available everywhere, you can find your podcast in terms of SoundCloud, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. I'm sure there's some more that you can find those podcasts. It was an incredible conversation that we had about Sign of the Times. And we've been very excited about Sign of the Times for a very long time, not just because of this box set. We were excited about it when it originally came out, and we're excited about it now. So in terms of the Grown Folks Music crew, we have Ivan Orr, who holds it down. He does tons of different podcasts for grown folks music, not just the Princeton related ones. Yeah. And Ricky also is a huge part of grown folks music as well. So Ricky, I've mentioned this before, has the distinction of being my oldest Prince friend that I actually still know. We met each other in high school, and so our Prince journey has been a very long one. We're still together, like Prince v. Britney, like holding folks together. And then we have a very recent friend, Liegh McInnis, and I'm going to tell a story that Liegh probably doesn't even remember. So there was a Prince from Minneapolis conference a couple of years ago, and Karen Gabay of the BBC, she was interviewing people, and she asked if I wanted to be interviewed and not about Prince. I was like, sure. So I'm waiting to be interviewed, and this guy is talking. She's interviewing this guy, and I was like, holy crap, it's no way I can go behind this guy. And this guy was Liegh McInnis, and I didn't know him at the time. All I knew was those like 10, 15 minutes I heard him, I was like, oh my God, I don't know nothing. Nothing. Like, Liegh, man, I was like, and now, like, you know, a couple of years later, like, I don't know how we originally like interacted with one another, because I was so blown away that I couldn't even speak to him. Like, I stalked her. Say that again?
I stalked her.
Yeah, you talked to her. Yes. And so now, and he's one of my dear Prince friends. I don't know life without Liegh now. It's like, what took so long? So I am very grateful that Liegh is here with us. And then last but definitely not least is Nicolay. And Nicolay is one of my favorite producers of all time. And when I found out he was a massive Prince fan, I was like, word.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, that's why I love his production so much, because, you know, I could hear it in the music. And before we get started, we have so many people here. I mean, I wasn't, again, this is like informal. I was expecting maybe 10 folks to show up. We got folks from Australia. So howdy, Melina Smith. Thank you so much for joining us. We got Marshall joining us. We got Laura from Iowa. And we got Pamela from Dayton, Ohio. And I have family in Dayton, Ohio. So I have much love for Dayton, Ohio. And for those of you who don't know, Dayton, Ohio is the funk capital.
Oh, yeah.
Capital, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio.
Yeah, Ohio. So Ohio is and we have BB from the UK. I mean, we got some people. So it's not just local, we're international. And last but definitely not least is my love, sexy brother, Harold Pride. Harold in the chat. And so he's hanging out on YouTube if you want to chat along with Harold. We love Harold. So we're going to get this started. So we're here to talk about the Vault Tracks #1. And the way I want to do this is not the way most people would want to do this. Oh, wait, before we get it, we got Dirty Jersey in the house from Luciana. Hopefully I'm saying your name correctly. So, and Marilyn, hi. And we also have another person from the UK representing I Love Freedom. I love that name. And hi, Marco. 1999 Designs. We love Marco and his work. So thanks so much for hanging out with us. So, oh, wait. Okay, I was born and raised in Alabama, so I gotta give a shout out to Marshall Henderson. She's in Alabama right now, and yes, we love Prince Rogers Nelson very, very much. So, normally with these kinds of shows, and the way that I kind of pitched it to you guys was that I wanted us to go through this track by track, and we are going to do that. 3 hours are gonna fly by super, super fast, and I probably should stick to the original program of going track by track. But I actually don't want to do that because I know a lot of other podcasts are sort of doing that too. And so I kind of want to switch it up a little bit. And what I want to do is talk about some of our tracks sort of out of sequence. And what I want us to start off with is talking about either what surprised you about, and we're only talking about Vault 1. So in terms of Vault 1, like, was there a surprise? Was there something that you were really looking forward to? Is there a song that you think sucks? What speaks to you about Vault 1? What spoke to you about Vault 1 before getting it? And then once you got it, what spoke to you about it? And then I'm hoping that through this initial conversation, we can get through some of them. And then any that we missed, we'll kind of go back and hit on, all the tracks that way. So I'm going to start off with Arthur, only because
alphabetical, huh?
Yeah, alphabetical. But also, I feel like you've made the biggest commitment since it's 8 a.m. out there, 8:13 out there where you are right now.
The biggest surprise, I think. Well, first, let me say that this set is, really just a set befitting of an artist at Prince's caliber, and for this to be the second deluxe set with that kind of treatment following the 1999 deluxe box set last year, I think that all those who were involved in putting it together, I believe they really, really put their heart into it. You could feel that. That being said, while this is not at all a direct criticism, it's almost an impossible task to be able to properly, archive this period. And it all started here, and this is how it ended. And so I think set-wise, the most surprising thing was that, they were able to not only put together, the best possible quality of all of the bootleg tracks that many of us have heard over the years, but they were still actually able to find things that we hadn't heard. Me personally, of course, the 1979 version of I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man, to me, is the crown jewel of the unreleased portion of the box set. But moving that to the side, there was still an alternate vocal take of Power Fantastic. And there were two versions of It's a Wonderful Day. I had only heard what is labeled as I think the remix version. I think that not having certain songs, for example, Neon Telephone, but Teacher Teacher is on this set is odd to me, given that Teacher Teacher was recorded before Neon Telephone, but then I kind of rationalized, okay, well, Neon Telephone was actually featured in Under the Cherry Moon, is the music that was playing when Mary Sharon's character, I believe, called Christopher Tracy. So maybe they'll do that for a Parade box set. because it's very likely that they will do a parade box set. Those kinds of rationales were a little surprising to be able to say, well, if you've got one song that clearly was recorded in 1985, but you've got other songs that weren't included at all. The reworked Rican Funk, for example, Girl of My Dreams, those songs were also recorded in this period. But going back to how I was starting out, it's almost an impossible task, because really you need one, if not two more discs or LPs to really be able to get it all in. And, I've always believed that for the most part, all of this music, whether it was going to be a Dream Factory project, a Crystal Ball project, a Camille project, ultimately a Sign of the Times project, to me, I believe, it was all one, it was all the same thing to him. And without getting into his head or him personally relaying that to somebody or writing it down to say this goes here and this goes there, you would almost really never know what was intended for what, if anything. But just to answer the direct question, I think what most surprised me the most was the 79 version of I Could Never Take the Place of Your Man. I don't think anybody knew that even existed. I don't even think the archivist knew that it existed, much less that they'd be able to find it. It also, what's surprising about that is that it features a non-falsetto vocal in the midst of him, starting out his career. Given what the recording date could possibly be, it was, a post-Prince album, Dirty Mind, Rebels period that he was recording this. It's like a lockstep relative of When You Were Mine. It really has that core 80s, new wave / rockabilly feel that was happening then. The Romantics and the Cars, and even the Stray Cats, just the real straight ahead, four on the floor, rock song that we got on the Dirty Mind album. But I Could Never Take the Place of Your Man is just that much more urgent, with that style. So that was the big surprise for me.
I think that's a really fantastic point that you pointed out in terms of Prince not using his falsetto for that song, because that's when he was heavily using the falsetto, so much so that when he started to not use the falsetto, I was like, what's going on? Like, is he losing his voice? I literally had the conversation with myself, like, why is he doing falsetto? Something's wrong with his throat, like, what's going on? So it's really interesting that you point that out. Another thing I'm kind of digressing a little bit, but you brought this up and I kind of want to talk about it, is that I do agree with you that Prince probably didn't see these as sort of distinct projects. They were really very much melding into one another, and it was pretty much all the kind of the same thing. But since the estate's job is really to sort of curate, and they're also sort of shaping narratives right now, this is what I wish they would have done. I really wish that for the Sign of the Times, there would have been a clear demarcation of the end of the revolution and the start of the new band. And what I mean by that is, I agree that I'm sure they're going to put out a parade box set. I really wish that the bulk of this material would have gone on a parade box set.
Right.
And
right.
Even though, yes, I know it leads.
Yes.
Thank you, Nicolay. You know what I'm trying to say. Even though it obviously led to the Sign of the Times. I mean, I understand that. I get it. But at the same time, there was the start of this new era with Sign of the Times, the album, not, what led up to it, but, like with the Sign of the Times in terms of introducing the new band, and also all these incredible live shows. I just really think that I really wish that the narrative that the estate is currently shaping would have been different. And if that meant that Parade needed to come out before Sign of the Times as a super deluxe, I would have been totally fine with that. And you have to understand, I love the Revolution. I love Wendy and Lisa. I think Wendy and Lisa's debut album is one of the best debut albums ever recorded by anybody.
Right.
But I really do think that the band with no name, that Harold Pride coined, really not getting their due because of the Revolution narrative. And when Sign of the Times came out in real time, we weren't talking about the Revolution. We were talking about Prince. And so, like, in terms of the new fans who are getting introduced to Prince's world, I feel like they're shaping a different narrative, and I don't like that personally.
Well, yeah, it's it's the same as Purple Rain is the centerpiece of the estate's marketing engine. All the deluxe, well, I mean deluxe, but all the legacy reissues that Sony did, all of them have purple vinyl. No idea why they got purple vinyl. The Revolution, or a semblance of it, has to be inserted in every type of copy or message that that comes out. I'm not a Revolution basher either. I think that they were the band that he needed at the time. And their contributions were their contributions. He surrounded themselves with he hired these people. So I'm certainly not going to strike them from the narrative. And you're right. Sign of the Times was a Prince album. The careful promotion to lead into Sign of the Times didn't even feature Prince until you actually bought the album and pulled out the sleeve that you actually clearly saw him and saw what he looked like. Okay, let me just rant for a moment. You're right, D'Angelo. You're absolutely right. There may be a third of these songs that are on this box set that really don't belong on this box set. If you're gonna say this is when Sign of the Times started, and for me, that's reasonably easy for you to be able to start. You could start it by saying, he went on a European tour, an Asian tour in 1986, in the summer of 1986. Did he record it all any time in that period? No. Okay. Well, the stuff that he recorded before that wound up 87 and after, that goes on Sign of the Times. All this other stuff, that's going to go over here to the pre-1986 Parade tour. That's not, that's not hard. But you can argue this. I don't mind arguing it. Whenever the ball started rolling to say, this is what we're going to do next, we're going to do Sign of the Times next, then that means that the Revolution doesn't have a narrative for 18 months, 16 months, maybe, depending on how they're going to release this. They're also, we're going to lose Sign of the Times to Sony. Universal got shafted on the deal. They lose Sign of the Times after this year in terms of the licensing rights. It goes to another recording company. So in a sense, it really was a gun to a head. Either we're going to do it, we're going to do Sign of the Times, or we're going to lose it forever. We can work out Parade because Warner is still holding on to that. So we got time. We've got time for that. So how do we work Wendy and Lisa into this? How do we do it? And am I saying that I believe that was an active decision in the discussions? Yes, I do. I believe that you still had to involve these individuals who were pertinent to, let me be more specific. Wendy, Melvoin, and Lisa Coleman in particular were pertinent to a lot of this unreleased material that we heard. They contributed to it. They overdubbed it. There was a whole Rolling Stone article about it written by Neil Carlin in 1986. That notwithstanding, just because they're not involved in something doesn't mean that they don't matter.
Right. Yeah.
And the band with no name, who are featured in 2 pieces in the set, the video and the live show, provided so much new context for Prince's career, because particularly in the United States, we had not seen him live for 2 years. No, technically 2 years, but really for 3 years. A tour in '85 for Purple Rain and a tour in 1988 for Lovesexy. And if you caught the hit and run shows in '86, you caught the hit and run shows in '86. And if you happen to be at the Sheila E. show that he showed up in, once in LA and once in San Francisco during Sheila E.'s tour, well, then you saw him play Kiss and possibly Love Bizarre, To us, it was a complete re-engineering of this man. And he did it year after year. And musically, this music is far and away beyond what he was doing on Purple Rain and Around the World in a Day. You had a real hint of what was coming next on Parade. But Parade was packaged as a movie soundtrack. So I believe that when you package something, you tie it to a visual experience, then you lose sight of you really lose sight of what you're actually looking at. Now I do I participate in Twitter threads. It's hashtag Prince Twitter threads, and in each one of these threads, an album is focused on, and each individual does a 40, 50 tweet storm about it. Okay. Saying all that to say, I talked about Take Me With You, and I talked about how Take Me With You was a song on Purple Rain, on the album that launched the Minneapolis sound. But Take Me With You was a song that was Prince saying, I am completely leaving the sound and starting to do something else. You had those same types of signs, on Parade.
Yep.
The addition of the addition of a horn section. Everything wasn't necessarily everything was funky, but everything wasn't necessarily in your face. This is black R&B funk. There was something else that was going on. But in both cases, the song "Take Me With You" and Parade as an album, when you tie it to a visual, it's easier for the medicine to go down. It's easier for you to take it in because there's some, greater thing that's happening along with it. But if you take those films out, particularly with Parade, you would just like, what the hell is this? So I'm starting to ramble. We kind of dial it back a little bit.
Good.
But the takeaways that I'm trying to say is that, Prince was moving in a different musical direction. He was evolving. And all great artists do this. This happens with all great artists. They do stuff that fans they question, they have to decide if they're going to go along with this journey, or not. And what I'm saying is that for us in the US, particularly because we did not see him tour. In '85, we see him with, lace and flowers. And then in '88, we see him on
Doves.
Some other stuff completely, It was, I don't want to say shocking because it wasn't shocking. It was something. It was something was happening, and we knew that something was happening. And the box set in totality kind of massages that out a little bit because it includes material that and it includes a 7-8 episode podcast where the initial third of the show was told this love story and told this relationship that was revolution related to sort of insinuate that the revolution made this record or that this album couldn't be made without the revolution. But he made a song, The Ballad of Dorothy Parker, with none of them. that was completely
My favorite
completely
song.
different than anything else that was on Sign of the Times.
Mhm.
So it wasn't that he didn't need them, but you know, he didn't need him to be Prince.
No.
Well, I've said this many times. Prince don't need nobody. I mean, he's never needed anybody, and Prince is just fine by himself. I mean, I love when he collaborated with other people. I mean, I love when he collaborated with Wendy and Lisa. I love when he collaborated with Eric Leeds. But at the end of the day, you know, Prince's own work without any collaboration is very powerful. I mean, so, I mean, with his collaborations, I always felt that it was something different, but, you know, it wasn't like he needed anybody. And I will continue to say that because, again, in real time, and then I'm not talking about now, I'm talking about literally when I was a teenager, when the Purple Rain album came out, because I didn't notice it on 1999, but when Purple Rain came out, when it said Prince and the Revolution, what?
Right.
I was like, what?
But he told you that was coming in the album art to 1999. He always tells you when something's coming.
I know. I didn't see it though.
I mean, no argument. But
I had the cassette. I actually had the cassette, so that was like really little.
Yeah.
And the
So I didn't.
Well, you know, I think it's important to like remember what Arthur was saying. Like, you know, back in what's this, 86, 87, like real time. You know, Prince and the was very big, and for a lot of people, that was what they knew of him. You know, it was very few of us who knew, like D'Angelo said, pre-Purple Rain, it was just Prince. And so, you know, like when, I mean, because this is like the MTV boom, which he kind of, you know, like Purple Rain kind of just, you know, segued into. That's what a lot of people knew him as, Prince and the. You know, he shared a Rolling Stone cover with Wendy and Lisa, and that movie narrative had taken on a life of its own and a story of its own. So I think, you know, the band with No Name, they have a no name because he, you know, I think it was a concentrated effort to be like, let me just get back to it being me, you know, instead of sharing this again with Prince and, because it was what, I think went until 91 that's it. We saw Prince and the again. And so I think that's why it was, you know, the next few albums were, you know, back to the original written, produced, arranged, and performed by Prince and all that. And so I think that was a concentrated effort to, you know, distance himself. I think like D'Angelo said, like, you know, like we knew he didn't need anybody, but sometimes the powers that be in media, you know, still wanted to try to say he needed these little entities and whatnot. And so that, I think that was a concentrated push. I think that's why some songs were chosen and maybe some were like, I think kind of left out or whatnot. And then too, so, you know, that, you know, I mean, like you said, just because they weren't involved doesn't mean that they didn't have anything to do, or just
I can't believe like I'm like the revolution guy here, but don't forget, Prince is a Midwestern funk band-oriented artist. He loved bands. And part of the Prince marketing early on had to do with this was a kid who did all of this himself. He really did it. But I'm saying from a marketing standpoint, that was necessary to get his, you know, 19-year-old, you know, out of, you know, North Minneapolis career started. So there was always, you know, a band. Now in you know, in that sometimes he titled the band something, sometimes he didn't, you know, notwithstanding, he liked playing with people. And, you know, starting with Dirty Mind, at least, you know, he featured his band. And began to give them characters and personas, you know, that definitely carried through to the initial New Power Generation period, you know, and even later with Third Eye Girl. So,
you know, it kind of reminds me of kind of like Miles Davis and his history. You know, you got some people that regard the the first quintet, Coltrane and Adderley and all those guys, it's like the one, like that's the best one. And then he got to that point where he was like, all right. And then he brought these other cats in, you know, Wayne Shorter and Herbie and all them. And people were trying to say that, you know, like people were trying to say that the people made it, but Miles has always been like, and even like in his autobiography, he says, no, I was the dude, you know, calling the shots and telling them this change here, change this here, do this there. And so, you know, minus his bands didn't have any names.
No, I agree. But, yeah, it's the steel, it's kind of the same thing. Steel. And you know, if you ask anybody, I mean, on the latter episodes of Andrea Swenson's podcast about Sign of the Times, you know, Levi Caesar heavily, he's like, you know, yeah, I was playing, but I'm heavily paraphrasing, but it's like, you know, I learned this. You know, and you're not going to learn like that. Michelle Indiegocello has said on camera that, you know, one thing that she had always wanted to do was actually tour with Prince. Why? Because I would learn so much. There would be so much that I would learn, and you're gonna learn from greatness, because greatness is going to try you. Otherwise, you're not even going to be around. Yeah, you're not. But you know, just to state it, you know, just to state it clearly, I don't believe that there's anything wrong with collaborations in influence, but I don't believe that collaboration in influence defines who you are retroactively, and that is the narrative that I am understanding. That's what I strongly disagree with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that happens a lot. You know, in when you look at someone this great's work, and you know, yes, the influence is there. I mean, you know, you can see, this is plausible, but at the end of the day, it sometimes gets into revisionism, because, as has been stated here, you know, he was great. He didn't need anybody, so he was going to do. He was going to do what he was going to do, regardless. I mean, you know, because of just this. You know, you can see, like you said, he's letting us know where he's going, and that's what great folks. That's just what they do. Great artists do. It's like, I got to do something different. Just got to do something different. You know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, plus I think now we're in a, you know, like we're at a point now, you know, whether it's good or bad, I guess that could be argued later, where everyone, especially when it comes, I know that his legacy is now trying to stake a claim that I had something to do with, or I had something to be involved with, whether it's emotional, like romantically, like musically, I mean, something, you know, like everyone is now staking a claim to something that they had to be a part in. And that's, I mean, you know, like you were there, so I mean, you know, like I can't knock anybody for that.
Not at all.
And say, you know, my only thing about that is that, you know, like we will never know, because, you know, like we get various stories, you know, from different people, but we would never know unless he was around to say, man, nah, they just did this.
Right.
And say, you know, I will, you know, reference the P. Diddy story, you know, back in the late 90s, it came out, you know, they was, you know, giving him props for all these remixes and stuff. And then people are like, man, he ain't do nothing but say change the symbol. or like add some reverb. Like, I know that it's so, I mean, you know, like we never know a person's, you know, I think amount of input. What we do know is that the common denominator from For You to Hit and Run 2 is one guy. And now you can say whatever you want to say, but this one guy did all of this, and he was around for all of this. So I mean, you know, like kind of like Ivan said, like, you know, you could hear somebody do something, and you know, maybe that influenced him or not. Maybe he just was like, oh, okay. And I remember, I mean, he did record everything, you know, like rehearsals and sound checks. So I mean,
yeah, you can hear it in real time.
Yeah,
depending on how deep your library is. Yeah.
So I mean, and you were contracted to work for this person. Now, just because I hear D'Angelo say my brother in love sexy, and I start saying that, so, I mean, like if I take it to a larger platform, like put it on t-shirts and, say my brother and sister in love sexy, this, that, or whatever. I mean, she could argue say, well, I came up with that first. Right. Okay, maybe. But I copyrighted it and put it out and sold it and made some money.
If I could, sorry, go ahead, please.
No, I'm just saying, man, like, it's kind of a tricky thing. And so, I get where some of the musicians and engineers are coming from, where they were there and maybe they had some input. But again, it's like, say, it's kind of like you take a test and you're asking your friend, hey, look, what should I study? Oh, study these notes. And then you get 100. Does your friend get the credit for your grade?
Right.
No, you did this, but because they said, hey, or like pointed you like in a direction or gave you a hint or did something, that doesn't, like their contribution isn't as big as what you did. And I'm just saying that, in this situation, like I said, from For You to Hit and Run 2 and all the stuff in between is one guy.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
One dude. Absolutely. And so, let's not lose sight of that. And so, I think Eric Liegh said it best on, I think his podcast, I know with Michael Dean and them, shout out to them, where he was like saying, he took out from like whoever was around. Like if you were there, he said was going to use this. And so I think, and I'm not against your, like I'm not against the revolution or anything like that. I think they're wonderful people and great tech musicians. I just think at this particular phase, given everything that was going on that like we know now, it's kind of like in basketball. Like I think with Jordan, do I want to pass this ball to, like Tony Kukoc or, like Luke Longley to shoot, or do I want to take this shot myself? And when the game is on the line, which is his career, his contract, he's the one that's got to answer to the Warner Brothers suits. You know what? I'm gonna bet on me, because when I bet on me, it's got me to 8 albums. It's got me to, like a movie that made, over 100 million that only cost me 7 million. It got me to this. So, I mean, yeah, y'all are good, but I'm gonna bet on me, I think, when it comes down to it. And so I think this was his thing, is like, okay, I thank you for what you, have contributed, but I'm gonna bet on me. And then this is what we go do.
So D'Angelo, I could never take the place of your man 1979 version.
Hilarious.
is what surprised me the most. And I believe that he played everything himself on that recording.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Nicolay looking at notes.
Man. Well, it's just
so really.
So I'm glad that Arthur used the word archivist. I think that as these box sets move forward, they're gonna have to do a better job of keeping separate the role of archivist and producer. Because it seems like their desire to make a production blurs the historical cohesiveness of the integrity of the project and the connecting projects. For instance, I like what we have, but I think it would have been better if they would have specifically divided and demarcated the box tracks into, say, very specific: Dream Factory, Camille, Cristobal, and even The Done. I think that would have made the package more cohesive and homogenous. It's very good, and thank God we have it, but it is as confusing as it is enjoyable, right? For instance, they are, including songs that were not even considered for any of the release albums that were preceding Sign of the Times. So if you're gonna do that, like Arthur said, like, why not include then Girl of My Dreams, since it was created with Dream Factory in mind? But hey, include Prince's vocal of Yo Mister, include Baby Go Go, include Yeah You Know, with the Eric Lee's horns added. Like if we're merely only including songs, say, between Parade and Sign of the Times. So I think that this configuration, though we love it, it misidentifies and improperly proclaims Sign of the Times as the Last Revolution album. And in doing so, what it really does is that it cheats and cheapens the significance of Dream Factory as the Last Revolution album, right? What's really needed is for all of the Dream Factory songs, as everyone has said, all of the Dream Factory songs should have been compiled and included in a Parade Super Deluxe so that people could hear the beauty, experimentation, power, range, and brilliance of the last days of the revolution. And this would accomplish two, right? The two things it would accomplish was this. One, it would have given that shine to the revolution that so many folks want to have, right? And then in doing that, introduce a new generation of fans to Parade. So that's the first thing that you would have gotten by putting the Dream Factory songs with Parade. But then secondly, including the Dream Factory songs with Parade would highlight even more the genius, and I want to stress this other word, the courage, the genius and courage of Prince to end that phase of his life, that brilliant creative phase of his life, because he knew he had more to give. Because if we follow the progression of Dream Factory, Camille, Cristobal, and Sign of the Times, Prince is clearly shedding his skin of the revolution and returning to his one-man band approach with ideas that couldn't be executed by the revolution in the same way that he needed them executed. By the time we get to Sign of the Times, 11 of the 16 songs have no revolution connection. And I would argue that 13 of the 16 songs have no revolution connection, depending on if we want to make Susanna a member of the revolution or not. Because the couple of songs in which she sings backing vocals, if that's not considered a revolution contribution, then it's 13 of the 16 songs. So that was the thing that most caught my eye, is that they could have done a better job simply connecting Dream Factory with Parade. Then you get the people who want to shine for the revolution. They get that shine because it's brilliant. It's excellent. No one is knocking any of the Dream Factory cuts. It's a wonderful, cut. And we'll talk about individual songs in a moment. But then once you do that, you then are now able to say, now check the brilliance of this one-man band, right? And I think that's what we are missing. I think that's what's confusing everyone, is that they missed an opportunity to really highlight for a new generation of folks just how super fantastic.
Say it, Liegh. So,
all right, class is over.
Yeah, I know, right?
Syllabus is in your mailbox.
Yeah. So,
in your inbox.
So Liegh, for you, what was the surprise from Vault 1?
Believe it or not, love and sex. Because the things that I heard, I always love Can I Play With You, so that wasn't an issue. But love and sex surprised me because it sounds like it is the perfect bridge between Baby You a Trip and a Half and Adore, right? It's the problem that a lot of people, is difficult to hear that because the instrumentation and the tracking is noisy. It's really busy. But if you can somehow separate Prince's vocal and listen to the vocal gymnastics that he's doing, it really is in the same family tree of Baby You a Trip and a Half and Adore. And it also then made me really appreciate A Place in Heaven more, because A Place in Heaven reminds me of Do You Lie. And that on the top layer, it's a whimsical song, but underneath, the vocal quality has a very soulful range that resonates to where it has an emotional weight that if you hear the vocal and stop listening to the carnival sounding music. So I would say that Love and Sex was the one song that really historically, right? And you're talking about, right, are we going to be archivists or are we going to be record producers? I think Love and Sex shows you that R&B soulful foundation never leaves Prince.
Very cool. So I don't know if there's audio coming from someone. I don't know who. Do you guys hear that audio?
I do.
Okay. I don't know where it's coming from. It went away. Okay. Awesome. So let's see. I'm gonna stay with the alphabetical order. Ivan, what what surprised you about Vault 1?
I don't know if it was so much. It was a great, just overall surprise. Just looking at this contextually, oh wow, I get all of this, this this vault stuff. But for me, you know, it was more of just the feeling of having some things realized or having some things in my possession in this kind of format, you know, because I'm the horn guy. So all the horn stuff, and just, you know, I think trying to put myself in the place of, you know, thinking about why wasn't this released? And I know it's easy to play like, you know, Monday morning quarterbacking, but one of the things that I appreciate so much, I mean, not only about Can I Play With You, but also like, you know, Dorothy Parker with horns, it's just that this whole notion of, and I think we talked about this on another podcast, but that kind of work and those kinds of realization, and even other instrumental work, they don't fit into a particular template whose you know, it rhymes with something that I won't say here, but that has always been a pleasure for me to hear Prince's work like that, because I feel like sometimes when you say jazz or you say other things, there's this box that things kind of fit into, and he is just, you know, he's just funky, just, you know, being himself, and I'm always on the lookout for when I can connect with that, and then of course Claire Fisher, the Claire Fisher nut that I am. So I think that, you know, for me, that's just always a surprise, a treat, whether it's a bootleg or, you know, something real. You know, that's the stuff I cling to. Plus, I mean, the fact, you know, when you talk about Dorothy Parker, that might be my favorite, song of all time, you know, regardless of artist. So yeah, that's kind of where I hang, where I laid, where I landed. So
Ivan, you're such the politician. I forgot. You know how I roll. There can only be one. So in terms of like Vault One, like what can you like single out like the one track where you're like, man?
You know, I am. You know me. I'm very. I have to referee quite a bit, which is cool. But I would say, you know, I'd land on, you know, Can I Play With You, honestly, and the reason why is just because of what. It's not even so much like being a surprise or like I've never heard it or anything like that, but I think it's what those two artists and the collaboration represent for me, and the time, time that it occurred in. I think that's like super, super important to me. And I think we already alluded to it, but like you have these two artists that were not afraid to just scrap it all. Like, yeah, I've been doing this, I've been wearing the suits, now I'm gonna do something, you know, totally different. And, you know, thanks. And that takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of courage. So yeah, that's what, you know, often stays near and dear with me. So that's what I would say. I will actually come with an answer. So
okay, what's special about that tune too, man, is like, you know, I know now it's kind of, you know, it doesn't seem like much, but back then that was like a big deal. Like you kept hearing these rumblings that Prince and Miles Davis were going to do something, and you know, not like now with social media where you have, you know, clips and things kind of coming out. You see people like in the studio or something, or you get leaks. You know, we would get little tidbits in Rolling Stone or some Black Beat magazine or some jazz thing, you know, where they would kind of comment on, say, each other. And so, you know, I can recall the first time finally hearing that song in 93, like on a bootleg that I got. And I remember like, oh, wow, it's finally the tune. And then, you know, like this one is just it's just a much clearer version, which I think is great. But yeah, like that was really, really, you know, even up until I think Miles passed away, you know, I think it was something on the back of people's kind of anticipation, hoping that, you know, we would see or hear something that, you know, like those two working together. Because it had been, I mean, this, you know, this had been talked about since like, maybe late 85, early 86, I think before Tutu came out, which was late 85. it had been talked about. And so I think I remember me and D'Angela kind of talking in the hallway at school once about, hey, is it a new Prince song on the Miles Davis record? And she was like, I don't know, I'm going to get it today. And so you know, it had always been there. And it had, I mean, even the New Year's Eve show, it was a blurb mentioning Rolling Stone and like their happenings in like the front of the magazine. It was like, oh yeah, Prince and Miles Davis did a show, you know, and it was just, you know, you just kind of always had that anticipation for wondering like what it would be.
So Ricky, since you're talking, do you mind sharing with us what your surprise was from Vault 1?
Okay. I will say, I know, I won't say my surprise, but I would say my moment was my in a large room with no lights, I think.
Yes,
my,
that was mine too. That was my, yes.
Yeah, that was a moment. And I say that because when I again, when I first heard that on a bootleg, I got a 93. I mean, you know, like one thing is Prince fans, like, you know, like we know of certain things, like that we know of live shows and the after shows and how he gets down, you know, but to the masses, they only know, you know, like Purple Rain or Raspberry Beret or Kiss, and it's so much more to that. And so I think this song was just one of those songs, you know, tunes where, like, you know, if you want to tell somebody, you want to see just how dope this dude was, here, check this tune out. And I remember being very, very happy when he went to Montreux and brought the song out. And then he started to do it. I just thought it was a gem of a tune to keep in the vault. I thought it was too good to kind of just stay collecting dust in a, you know, tape bin. And so, you know, like that's my tune. Like that's probably one of my favorite tunes of his. Like if I had to pick a top 5, like that would definitely be in the top 5. You know, I think it's just a you know, like a musical growth tune, like kind of like Arthur was saying, you know, would Take Me With You, how he was moving from this Minneapolis sound thing to hear that tune and then realize where music was at that particular time in 86 or 87 and then hear that tune and it not be like anything that was on the radio or like what was going on. You know, it would have been interesting to see how the public would have responded then to that tune and how the critics would have responded. But it's such a great tune, man. I mean, it's you know, definitely one to just, you know, I think he was really like in the zone with that, and they were like when they did that, they could you know, it's just a great tune. Like I think that's the one for me.
All right, so Nicolay.
Yep. What Ricky said basically, man. Large Room was my holy grail for years and years and years and years. But that's and you guys can hear me okay, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, again, like just echoing everybody's you know, you're oscillating between being so grateful for getting all of this and being very you know, sad and you know, regretful, you know, that we're getting this because it means only one thing, you know. And that makes it, you know, it always gives me a little bit of pause, but now that we've sat with it for a little while, I'm really looking at this more from the historic perspective, quote unquote. You know, and then I do sort of like my biggest surprise was Power Fantastic, not because, you know, just the alternate take of it. And I don't think we've heard Prince with his own voice, I think, like that before, other than maybe some of the, you know, we've heard rehearsals in bootleg form, you know what I mean? But just to hear him direct the band and probably one of my favorite sort of Revolution tracks, really with Large Room and with stuff like Splash, I think that sort of side of the Revolution, you know, that the really kind of the art funk, quote unquote. I think that had a ton of potential, but it doesn't really fit on here. You know what I mean? So it gives you this dilemma of like having to really, like, for myself, my fandom started with Prince during this very time. I didn't really know what the revolution was at first. You know, I would have seen Wendy in the Kiss video, um, and I had seen the Purple Rain video, so he had a band in that one, but it was the band. You know what I mean? I didn't know. You know, everybody has a band. You know, every singer, and so my fandom was really Sign of the Times and Love Sexy, and him with, you know, solo, but also with that band, with the band with no name, and I really think they botched that. I think the branding of it, especially the podcast and I'm just critical because we love so much of this that we feel strongly even about the stuff that we feel didn't work out, and I think the branding of it, the podcast, some of the people on the broadcast have seen me talking about even the New Year show and how I think they managed this way to get Susanna back in there, and that was really a moment for me where I just felt a lot of just like, you know, I guess despair, if you will, almost as a as a fan, because it's like it just felt like a real sort of obvious moment of like what the forces at play were doing, and you never really want to see your skepticism, um, you know, I guess confirmed, but here we are. So, I mean, with that said, like, I'm so thankful, ironically, for all these amazing tracks. And as much as I agree with even C. Lee and Arthur and definitely at D'Angelo, like, half of this stuff, if not more, should have been on a Dream Factory sort of, line in the sand parade moment. I could also I could have seen, but I guess now it's a little bit further down the road, but more of like a Neil Young archive sort of approach where you have the album,
Mm. Hmm.
remastered as a thing, and then you have a archives, quote unquote, 10 CD that literally goes, you know, along the timeline. I think with Prince, we're starting to really discover. I think it was even Arthur or maybe Scott Woods who said like he was always just jumping through different timelines. The July '86 Prince was like Parade Prince when he was debuting Under the Cherry Moon or playing a parade hit on run. But then he's also like Sign of the Time Prince, and you're like, wait a minute, like he's going back and forth, And so I understand that this is really really difficult, I think, to get right. That being said, I don't see the vision. I don't see the, no pun intended. I don't see, I don't see the strategy here. I see a lot of really cool jewels, obviously in the crown, but I don't really see a vision. And, of course, as a super fan, if I may say so myself, like that, bothers me a little bit, but I've also sort of let it go because, again, there's so much here. The Big Tall Wall track is a big surprise to me. Like, I guess the first version, because I only knew it as the later version, and kind of similar to Witness. I didn't really care for that sound. The later rework of Witness didn't really do it for me, and I think Big Tall Wall was another one of those tracks. But it's interesting to hear that original version, and that's just something where I just I had no idea that even existed. And even seeing, I just had to grab my little my dance music sex romance. That was kind of the first book that I read that was more sort of really going into it, and so to see stuff like And That Says What, which is like this mythical sort of thing, and now all of a sudden we're hearing it, it's just like, oh my god, like that. A lot of these tracks now, like Katrina's Paper Dolls or Wednesday, like those used to be just concepts, that maybe they were true, maybe they weren't, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, not only does all that stuff exist, but it really, it's all, these are all things that were out there, and that just continues to blow my mind. So I really, there's a lot of surprises on here, really, because when they first dropped the track listing, I didn't really fully dive into it because it was just like, okay, I'll just see, I guess, and but the horns on the ballot, it just, there's a lot here, but again, All My Dreams, love having it, but it doesn't belong here. I don't, as much as that is one of my my all-time holy grails, like, I'm concerned that it's on here, you know. So it's mixed bag, but really, that being said, it's a mixed bag of stuff that I freaking love, man. Just
Mhm.
you know,
Real
just
talk.
you
If you
know,
were like a
Yeah.
new fan, like if you like just got into Prince and they released this and you heard all of this music,
right.
you'd be on the floor in dire need of oxygen
Yeah. I mean,
with what they
we're
got on
so
this.
nitpicking. I mean, we're you know, it
Yeah.
is like, and I you know, again, I want to make it clear that they're doing a good job because they're not really screwing it up. You know, so I want to kind of make clear that my criticism is kind of, you know, I mean, it is nitpicking. That being said, I think, you know, some of it straight up doesn't make any sense. Like, and that's not even on this first disc, you know, but like a parade tour rehearsal, dude, like, really? Like, now you're just really like, and, you know, that's 12 minutes, dude, of other stuff that you could have just, man, that just really is just one of them where it's just like, okay, I know you have good intentions, but that one makes me just have to, you know, really work hard. So you know, but a lot of great surprises. Really, just hearing Prince on Power Fantastic, and then just kind of that moment of it. You know, it's just like I think a lot of that is why I love him. You know, a lot of that is as a musicologist. You know, because I went to school for that stuff, and then it's really ironic. I studied musicology, kind of really had a hard time there because like I was trying to do stuff like Zappa and Prince, and they were not. That wasn't. It was Beethoven or at best like Shostakovich. You know what I mean? But like never anything. So I dropped out. Long story, but like now I can apply a lot of that to something that I really love, and with these tape boxes, these photos of these console Polaroids, it's just like, oh my God, like so many of the puzzle pieces all of a sudden are becoming available to us in such a rapid pace. That is really exciting. You know, that is really, I'd love to see more of that, more of those tape box photos, more of instruments, more of, the studio potentially, rehearsal spaces. You know, I like the Jeff Katz photos, and I realize I'm kind of going off stream because at this point it's no longer just the first vault disc, but yeah, like it's the vault. Like show the vault, show like more of the vault. I think they really did great with the lyrics. Like that's we want all of that. More of it essentially. So I mean, I would grade it a B minus. I think this first disc. I think it's not an A, but like it's still better than most people's like regular albums. So it's just like
I
when it
mean, they're
comes
getting
to
there. They are getting
right,
there.
they're really close. And I think if you look at the Purple Rain Deluxe, this is such a step up.
Mhm.
I think the '99 one was my favorite because that felt a little bit more like on the nose, like for that project. And I realized we didn't get the time live and stuff like that. And
Vanity
that
Six.
Vanity Six, that was
Yeah.
that was tough, but that was a little bit more on the nose, maybe easier in the timeline to get right. But
Yeah.
they are they've changed course, and I think these remaster sounds amazing. The default tracks too. I mean, the sound is incredible. For most of them, to my ears. I'm not a audiophile. Like I hear a lot of people talk about. Well, some of them are lossy sourced, or some of them are this or that, and it's just like, dude. This is where I'd say Kanye West said, like, shut up and enjoy the greatness. Like, that's
Yeah.
that's really what it is. It's like that part doesn't matter to me. Like, you can source it from a damn VHS. Like that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we're getting gold here, man. Like,
hmm
you
hmm
Yeah.
know.
I know.
So
I
yeah.
know. One surprise for me was "It's a Wonderful Day." So much
Mm,
just because the music was from Under the Cherry Moon,
yeah.
and I actually
Correct.
said when I heard that,
That
yeah, I thought about D'Angela because I know she's a big Under the Cherry Moon person, and like as soon as I heard it, I was like, wait, there's vocals to this tune because like I thought it was a Flesh tune, and like every time I hear it, I still think of them just kind of like an Under the Cherry Moon, like getting dressed, and so you know you know, like just for years, or for those of us who used to do this, I know Deanza and I we used to run TV audio through the stereo and take the music from scores. And so, you know, for years, that was my, if 10 seconds worth of just a tape space of you just playing that. And so now you get the whole thing. It would have been nice to kind of, I mean, to Arthur's point, knowing that was in that film, clearly that was done pre this moment. So shouldn't that have been included on a like potential parade thing? But you know, like maybe they'll do like an instrumental of that on there on, you know, as something else. But I know that was one of those moments. Yeah, like that was one of those moments where like I'm, you know, kind of playing the disc and I'm listening, you know, doing some other stuff, and I heard it and I, you know, just kind of did a double take, like, wait a minute, that's from this era or tune. So like that was a pleasant surprise. So, you know, like that was one I know that caught me off guard.
So I'm going to talk about my surprise. I'm going to go full solo because someone agrees with me in the chat room, and I'm going to of the track one. Like the biggest surprise for me is why in the freaking world would you put a 3-minute edit of Crystal Ball on this box set?
Yeah, it's mind blowing.
I was like, what? This is blasphemous. I mean, and you know, really going back to people who are hearing this for the first time, like if they're hearing the song for the first time, they're not getting the epicness of that track.
Right.
And then if they put out a longer version of this track, subsequently, that first listen has been taken away, you know, with this edit. I was like, I do not understand that edit. I mean, I was livid. Like, why? All right. That's all I'm going to say about that. So we are over our hour mark. So I know we're not going to get through these tracks, but we're going to try. So Arthur's already talked about I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man, the 1979 version. I will say that it was a shock for me. And also what was even more shocking was how close the release version is to the original in terms of songs. I was just like blown away. I was like, really? Wow. Only because, you know, Prince sometimes, if you go back to Witness, you know, just like the version that's on Vault 1 is totally different from the other one in terms of the music. So I was like, really? With I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man, it's pretty much there, you know? And so that was really a surprise for me. So since Arthur's already talked about that track, and I think for us to get through all of these, or try to at least, everybody doesn't have to talk about every single track, but if there's something that you really want to say about a track, let us know. So is there anybody who wants to talk about I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man? See, Liegh.
Only to say that Prince is one of the few artists who can mess up my playlist. So the way I listen to Prince is I listen to the album, so the whole album, followed by the B-sides, followed by the outtakes that didn't make either. So that's from For You all the way through. And I listen chronologically. So the only problem with I Could Never Take the Place of Your Man now for me is, right, since I have, and I do have For You and Prince in one playlist. So I have For You, followed by Prince. And then after that, all those songs that we have, those boosts that we have from 77 to 79, right? So that's what follows all of those, right? But DeAndre, you said something that's really specific. Never Take the Place of Your Man is almost really complete. So the question for me now in reformatting my playlist, since I'm doing everything chronologically, right? Am I then going to have to do that song twice, right? In original chronological order, so on that playlist, but then also on my Sign of the Times playlist, because that song is so complete. And so that speaks to that genius was already there. Right, I like something that Pepe Willie said. And I remember when Chris Moon was getting a lot of shine for bringing Prince's talent out in the studio, and Pepe said, "No, By the time Prince met Pepe, Prince knew how to record in the studio. By the time Prince met Chris Moon, Prince knew how to write songs and record in the studio. And so I think that Never Take the Place of Your Man is affirming what Pepe said, that genius is already there before other folks start arriving and saying, I brought this out of Prince that wasn't there.
All right. Anybody else want to say anything about I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man?
I still love it.
Right. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
I do want to point out this comment from Kenneth about how I Try changes the song completely. I do think that is a really valid point. And another thing that Kenneth said that I just want to touch on really quickly is that he mentions that Crystal Ball is on Crystal Ball, which, but meaning the Crystal Ball that was released to us, which wasn't the original Crystal Ball. But in my opinion, because of this really big push of the Silent Times Deluxe box set, I'm hoping that he's going to get a lot of fans through this box set, and specifically, and that's my context of the edit. Because I mean, technically, if Michael Howe was following his own rules, I mean, I really don't want to get into this conversation, so I'm going to say it and then I'm going to drop it. There's this tension between some Prince fans that edits are valid in terms of taking up space on a super deluxe box set. I hope you know where I fall. Edits, I mean, why have an edit of a Prince song? It makes absolutely no sense to me. It never has. If there's a 30-minute Prince, if the song is 30 minutes, I want to hear every 30 minutes. I want to hear the 30 minutes and the 1 second. Why are there edits on this box set, especially the deluxe one? Thank you for the singles box set. That's where the edits belong. Who wants to listen to an edit on a CD? Don't you want to listen to an edit on a 45? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Teacher. Anybody have anything they'd like to say about that? I will say my piece, which is, I wish it wasn't on the box set. I feel like it's taking up space. That's me. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much. I mean, it's great, but not, I think we don't need to talk about it in this context. Sorry.
Agreed.
Go ahead.
Okay. No, brother, you first.
I will only say, I agree with you guys. It should be on here. Its historical context is twofold. It lets you know that Prince was in love with bands like Sly and the Family Stone, where you could have multiple lead singers. So it does that aspect of it. And I think also, and I can't remember whether Arthur or Ivan or Ricky who said it, that the other thing that Teacher does is, and I know I'm gonna get crucified for this, but I really do think that listening to Teacher makes me realize that Plectrum Electrum was Prince's redo of never releasing Dream Factory. That the one thing that we did never get from Prince was his vision of a band where everybody had equal parts and equal vocals. And so I think that Plectrum Electrum was his attempt to make good on Dream Factory. And I think Teacher kind of reminds us of that was something that he always wanted to do.
All right. Anybody else have anything Ricky?
It just reminds me of, for those of us who say, remember when MTV would play videos.
When was that?
and they had this segment, I think it was like 120 minutes, and it was like 2 hours of the alternative, not mainstream videos. It sounds like one of those tunes that you may hear from a group that was featured on that particular segment. I think he wrote it for the group 3 o'clock or something like that, or that was the intention. And so it just sounds like one of those 86, 87 like alternative pop tunes. If it wasn't on there and it was still being mentioned, and people would be clamoring, try to find it and get it just to say they heard it. But I don't hate it, and I'm not over the, I'm not doing backflips over it, but it's kind of like, oh, okay. I mean,
So you're okay with it on this set?
I am okay with it because all of you are okay with elephants and flowers, and so I am.
Whoa.
And man, so yes, I will get all of you back for all those times.
Flag on the play.
Oh my goodness. All right. We're knocking them down, sort of. I will say, for All My Dreams has always been one of my favorite songs of all time. And so I am very delighted to have a pristine copy of it. And it's a fantastic song, and kind of going back to, I think, something Liegh said, or actually Ricky. I'm getting like my short-term memory is not very good. I think it might have been Ricky in terms of there are certain songs that were so good that I just did not understand why Prince did not put them out in real time. And All My Dreams was one of those songs. I would just shake my head like, why, Prince? Why? Like, why are you, not giving this to us, at the pristine quality? So All My Dreams is definitely one of my favorites of all time. So who wants to talk about All My Dreams?
Definitely. I love same reasons as you. All My Dreams was one of my all-time favorite outtakes. And I think, part of the frustration of having it here is knowing that, what we get next, hopefully with Parade, if we do, which I do hope we do, they probably won't include it again. I mean, it's not likely. Even though this says something about it being an 86 version or whatnot. And we know it's from, I guess, April of 85, I think, originally. So like, it really more fits with stuff like Old Friends for Sale and Others Here We're With Us even, which, I mean, is acquired taste, but I would still, as a completist, I would still want that.
Oh yeah.
But All My Dreams is again kind of like the height, I think, of the creative sort of potential of what the Dream Factory, quote unquote, was going to be. I think with those tracks that I've mentioned before, that just have this sort of, they're kind of worlds of their own. Those tracks, and I think All My Dreams. I really, there's people, even on Prince.org, there's people talking about how, well, it's too long, or I didn't care for this or this and that element. This is one of those songs where I think every single element is perfect, from the way that all of the voice manipulation is to the acoustic guitar that does that funky sort of thing once the drums change. Like, I think that's really one of those songs where it's so realized and complete and complex that it's just a fascinating listen, and really I think Prince and admittedly Wendy and Lisa just at their very best, and just a great I think example of just how daring they were in that time, because it's accessible, but it's still just like it's a step up from Parade, in every way. But it at the same time, it originated from Parade, so it's kind of like, again, these lines are so blurry for us that it's such a challenge to sort of really kind of make sense of it. But I think All My Dreams, I'm very, very. It was a track that I had in All My Dreams, so it really I'm again super grateful, but also just like, oh man, like what are they gonna do for Parade now? Because it would have been in my mind one of the crown jewels even of that one, honestly.
Anybody else? Liegh.
Two quick things. The first one, y'all all gonna choke me, but this is just what I hear.
Uh-oh.
Whenever All My Dreams, I hear it at the beginning, for whatever reason, it reminds me of tacos putting on the Ritz. I know that's blasphemous, but I always hear tacos putting on the Ritz. The second part, and I'm talking to creatives, knowing the fact that the talking part eventually shows up and acknowledge me, makes me really think about the creative process, how we as artists take parts of things that we create originally and can take that out and make it something else. And just on a really quick, like I had this short story that I was really trying to get published, And everybody was telling me, if you remove this middle section, it'll get published. But my heart so loved that middle section, I wouldn't remove it. I finally removed the middle section, was able to get it published. And then I took that middle section and built another short story and was able to get that published. So that talking part at the end of All My Dreams, I think, is a lesson to young creatives that, you know, you're going to always have building blocks with your art. And don't think that just because something doesn't work for this project doesn't mean it won't work for another project. And I think that was another of Prince's genius, is his ability to look at his work holistically and then incrementally, and to be able to just kind of cut and decide. I think when he was, you know, using the symbol, he said Prince was a great editor. And I always took him saying Prince was a great editor, meaning he was able to look at parts that may not work in a particular song, but be able to take it and construct something else around it. And that just always inspired me, as just because something doesn't work today doesn't mean I can't revamp it and have it work tomorrow.
Absolutely.
You know, that's an interesting point you bring up, because I had a discussion with a friend of mine about this set, and I know I may be getting ahead of some tunes at D'Angelo, but I was just saying, like, you know, if you had you know, presented to us in '87 these alternate versions of certain songs like Dorothy Parker or something else, would we have gone with the one that's on the actual album? And so, you know, my ears would, you know, now would probably say, no, I would want the better version. But, you know, I marvel in his genius to say, okay, I'm going to go with the minimal version. And he was very good at that with the minimalist piece of say his work. Like he could, you know, because he clearly was sitting on two versions of like a great tune, but he chose to go with the more stripped down version. Clearly,
Arthur disagree with you on that. Just so you know.
Who does?
Arthur, not me.
Oh, okay. I mean, clearly, you know, before the album came out, he had already started band rehearsals, so he had already revamped again. I could never take the place of your man, which he could have easily been like, you know what, let's switch this and do this here. So, you know, to your point, you know, when we get these tunes in there, you know, some other versions, even like Power Fantastic, like you're sitting on this and you choose it, and you know what, I'm just gonna hold back and not put this out. You know, he was clearly a master at like giving us, you know, these very stripped down versions of tunes, and then later when we get like the 12-inch version or like we see it live, we're just like, you know, and it's and we're like, oh my God, he changed it again. And so, you know, I mean, you know, I don't think I as a musician could have gone with the stripped down version. I would have been like, I'm trying to blow people's ears out from the gate, let me put this on here. But I mean, you know, I don't know, like that's just so, you know, like when you talk about like that tune, you know, just one of those things like this. I mean, especially say on like the first disc, like say, like you hear some things, you're like, wow, I mean, you know, he could have easily given us this back in '87. And then we feel differently about, you know, like if we had heard these, you know, like this, like these versions of tunes back in '87 and then heard what we got now, we probably be like, oh yeah, I see why you went with this version. But now it's just the opposite. So that's just a small point. Yeah.
I can see Arthur holding back.
Oh yeah, vein is coming in right there. I see it. You got the vein coming in right there.
Well, I mean, we need to move a little bit down the list, and then I can
really let loose.
Yeah. I got two songs right here back to back.
Okay.
Really noted. Okay, before we move on to the next song, the one thing I do want to say about All My Dreams that I did not say is I do have to give mad shout outs to Wendy and Lisa for those background vocals. I mean, they're just stunning. So that song in particular is amazing. Okay. Can I Play With You featuring Miles Davis? For me, I've always loved the track. I really was hoping that there was a Prince song on Tutu. Like that was like in real time. I was angry. I was like, where's this Prince song is not here, even though I love Tutu personally. I bought it on vinyl and it's fantastic. So I really love that they included it on this box set, particularly because of, you know, having the New Year's Eve show as well. So that's all I'm going to say, just for the sake of time. Does anyone else want to say anything about Can I Play With You?
Shout out to him for choosing not to include that on Tutu.
Right.
So, you know, because I think Marcus Miller really did his thing on that. And so, you know, Prince could have been could have dwelled on the ego and like, yeah, put my song on there. But after hearing what was already like submitted, he just was kind of like, nah, you know, I'm a kind of, you know, hold on to it. And it kind of built up the mystique because over the years we got, you know, little tidbits more and more. So still like you, D'Angela, you know, I was kind of interested then. I see now, and I think in hindsight, you know, hearing the tune clearer, it didn't fit. Yes, it didn't fit. But you know, still, I'm glad that we got that collaboration and they were able to, you know, do something.
Yeah,
it's
not a great track, really. I mean, it's just not. I think it's, you know, I think it's important to have in the timeline, but when I mean, it's just not something that you think like, okay, in my mind, I'm closing my eyes, you know, Prince and Miles Davis, that, you know, and I don't know what would, but that wasn't the one. And I think again, the master of editing, like that is really just what you learn along the way is that like, I think he largely kept, you know, I mean, you know, a lot of these decisions where I think, you know, whatever you want to call it, I think he largely made the right decisions on a lot of this stuff. Like really got a lot of this right, even with the hindsight of now and having more material, so that you can really see like, wow, like he did, you know, like even a lot of the choices in terms of cutting to get to the final Sign of the Times record. You're just like, wow, it makes sense, you know what I mean? I mean, save one or two here and there, but no, I think the master of editing is so true, and that song I think is really, I love hearing it for its historical value, and it fits the timeline, but it's not a great song, and it's even the verses are kind of meh. It's really just, you know, all right, I guess, more than anything. And
I mean, you know, and to his credit, I know, you know, he probably was intimidated. I think I'd heard some stories that he was kind of intimidated. Not intimidated. I know Miles wanted to work in, say, the studio with him, and he was kind of like, well, like, you know, like, who am I to tell Miles Davis what to play, say, and how to play? So, you know, as a nod to, like, say, respect, I think he, you know, was kind of that, you know, I'm sure that's intimidating. Like when you got someone like Miles Davis and you're like, okay, I got to go in with this person. And so,
just send them the tape.
Yeah.
And that's what you know, that's what
happened.
happens.
Distance, right?
Yeah. And so, I mean, for that, it does, like, I mean, like Nicolay said, I mean, you know, it does sound like a Prince track that a trumpet player is kind of just practicing, and you just happen to catch him practicing, and he's just filling in like little spots. I mean, it does sound that, but to Miles' credit, it does work where he's filling in, you know, and so and you know, clearly they clearly, you know, you see the love and respect there, because you know Miles ended up later doing the first version of Madhouse 17. There's like rehearsal, there's like sound check footage of Prince and the band playing Footprints, you know, and they did all blues, so it was all there. So you know,
it's kind of a pedestrian track for, you know, for Miles Davis. Even at that time, you know, Ricky was talking about Tutu, and yeah, there was much more interesting material that Marcus Miller and George Duke provided Miles for the Tutu album. And I think that had Miles worked with Prince in the studio and actually worked with him earlier during, say, maybe the Robert Irving III era, The Man with the Horn, You're Under Arrest, that would have been more the type of Prince production that had that, you know, that mad scientist feel to it.
Yeah.
Slight deviation, but I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole. one thing that disappointed me about the box set overall, and this is, I believe, clearly due to the fact that I've heard a lot of these songs over the years, the vault material, but there was no Colleen, for example, where on 1999, you had this this drum machine synth bass, workout that was just completely out of the blue for me. And listening to an album called We Want Miles, which is a live Miles Davis album that was recently released. And in his band, in Miles's band, he's got Marcus Miller on bass, and he's got, I believe, Al Foster Jr., on drums, and particularly a song called Fast Track. Listening to Fast Track and listening to Colleen, they have a similar, feel. And I could hear, a Prince Miles Davis collaboration or a Prince produced Miles Davis, session where Miles would really want all of that, all of that way out stuff. I mean, famously, Miles Davis told Easy Mo B when they did the Doo-Bop albums, like, no, I want that, I want that real stuff. I want that street, And Easy Mo B was surprised that Miles Davis wanted this, but Miles always wanted to, reach forward. And I think that Can I Play With You as a track just had a more pedestrian feel, but it could be, directly related to Alan Leeds. And I believe Alan Leeds said this on Andrea Swenson's last episode, that Prince just didn't get it. Like, why would Miles want me to produce him? Why, he just couldn't comprehend what that was. So I think Prince maybe, I don't know, not in his head, but it's just not, I think it would have been better if it was a studio thing where they were actually collaborating as opposed to a handoff.
Right.
It makes sense to me, man, as an artist. Like, if you consider Prince being my Miles Davis, like, no way in hell would I even need to. I don't need to contribute anything, like, it's, I think certain people, you really just put them on a certain type of pedestal where you're just like, not really, it's not even about that, you're just a fan, And I could imagine that being a moment where Prince, more than anything, like, I think of all his influences and as much respect that as he's given to, like, people like, Larry Graham over the years, or any of, like, Miles, I think really was his sort of one of his, I think, musical sort of like bullseye, like that was like somebody that I think both musically and personally he was just a fan, man,
Now I do have some hope. Hopefully there is a tune that they did call like A Couple of Miles, he and Eric. There was like a tribute to Miles Davis. I don't know, what was that, like Parade era, or was that this era? Hopefully that will see the light of day one day. Because if that was this era, I guess it would have been nice to include that on here, but I understand why they didn't. But if it's Parade era, hopefully they'll put it on there. I know that they did that tune pre Madhouse, I do believe, kind of like pre Madhouse, post Flesh type stuff. So,
Plus, just jumping in here real quick, I know we got to move on, but one of the things that I was just thinking about also is like how this has been framed, and again, this is one of your idols, but also just the layer of the fact that it was one of his pops idols. So you dealing with, like, damn, my dad was into this dude, I'm into this dude, and that's just a whole nother level of reverence that you kind of have to strip away. So I just think that that's interesting, especially when you think about just how important both of these artists are generationally to the music. So
All right, I know we have to move on to the next song, but I do want to say, and I'm sort of in dissent with most of you. I mean, in terms of the collaboration, I think it's pedestrian. But in terms of the actual track, it's actually one of my favorite tracks off of Vault 1. It's one of the tracks I really look forward to. It might be because sometimes I gravitate towards what I call more acoustic Prince. Like, this is a more acoustic Prince versus it's I'm not even gonna get started. We can't get started. Let's go to Wonderful Day. As far as Wonderful Day is concerned, I really wish it would have been on the parade box set, Super Deluxe box set, which they hopefully will do, because I affiliate that with Under the Cherry Moon so much. And I also want the instrumental. So like, if you're gonna put Wonderful Day on Sign of the Times to Super Deluxe, why didn't you give me my instrumental? So hopefully you're gonna put that on the Parade Super Deluxe box set. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. Anybody else want to say anything about Wonderful Day?
Can I blast you for a moment? So, and I know I know what I'm about to say is blasphemous, but like everybody else, you know, I've been collecting boots since probably 88, 89. Probably got my first hand on my first boots. I'm much more of a live boot person, right? I love unreleased live shows, both video and audio. Wonderful Day just simply is the perfect song that, for me, 85% of the unreleased studio stuff I've ever heard from Prince, 85% of it, not that I didn't like it, but my gut response was, yeah, I see why it's in the vault. And so Wonderful Day is that type of song. It's not that it's a bad song. It doesn't do anything but sustain a nice groove. You keep waiting for it to explode. You keep waiting for it to change. You keep waiting for it to murph. Again, I'm not saying I like it. It cooks. But after so long, I want the cooking to do something. And so Wonderful Day for me is like the perfect vault track that for me represents like 85% of the stuff that's in the vault. It's good, but it doesn't change in any way how I feel about Prince. That is, it's not a song where I go, ooh, I didn't know Prince could do that. Mm-hmm. And I think it's for me reflective of a good number of stuff, and why I wish we would get a lot more live stuff. We would get a lot more live audio and video, because I think that's a part of the legacy that's being missed.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point right there.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before, particularly on the Sign of the Times Super Deluxe Celebration event we had. I mean, I want a live box set. I mean, that's really what I want. And, you know, I gotta have those after shows. I mean, video would be fantastic, but if you can't give me the video, give me the audio. But the live shows is where it's at. I mean, I'm like you, Liegh. I much prefer and also the rehearsals. Like even like so here we go. We do rehearsals first, then after shows, then the actual live show. Like I want the rehearsals. I mean, to be honest with you, that's what I would really love. Even though I know that sometimes they can be super repetitive. That's one thing. So going back to Wonderful Day, what you just said, Liegh, I totally agree with you. However, I identify it so closely with Under the Cherry Moon, my absolute favorite film, and that is actually a fantastic scene that it really elevates the song for me, you know. So like I'm biased because of that Under the Cherry Moon affiliation.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Just the one other thing I want to say is, with Wonderful Day, if we're going to get a Parade Deluxe, since we're here talking about shifting back and forth, my jewel, the thing that I want, probably the one thing that I want more than anything, because all I have is a very crappy version of it, is I want the live version of Honest Man. Is it from the New Morning Paris show? That if you're going to do a Parade Deluxe, you're going to hear that. For me, my jewel, the one thing that I'm missing is a very clear live version of an Honest Man, because I think that version, particularly from and forgive me, right, to do the New Morning Paris show, his vocals are just phenomenal. That's it.
I was just going to add to Liegh about, I think, A Wonderful Day. If I'm not mistaken, is that from a Flesh session? And if so, I think you would get your I'm impressed by Prince moment if we probably got those sessions as a whole instead of getting bits and pieces of those, say, released. I think, you know, if they ever get around to one day putting those out, please do. I think we'll have that moment, because, you know, like D'Angelo said, that song's Under the Cherry Moon, and so you you get it even then it's in a little piece, but it would be good to kind of hear the whole thing because maybe it does some other stuff that maybe you mentioned that we have never heard.
So, I mean, I don't know if Wonderful Day was a part of the Flesh sessions. I personally don't know that, but I will say that I was disappointed that the Flesh sessions wasn't a part of the Sign of the Times Super Deluxe box set. I will say that, and going back to what Nicolay said, why are you giving me a parade rehearsal when you could have put the Flesh in? That's my thing. Why are you giving me edits when you could have given me Madhouse? I'm just gonna say that. So, and and I'm gonna keep saying this. So, you didn't give me Madhouse because you're gonna do a Madhouse Super Deluxe box set. That's the reason why you didn't give us Madhouse, and you're gonna put the Flesh in with the Madhouse Super Deluxe box set. That's the reason why I wasn't on here. Thank you, Estate. I know that you're gonna show up for us. So, thank you for that.
Okay, Dwayne $2. Yeah, push that for us, Dwayne. We need it. Yeah.
All right. So next track, Strange Relationship. I'm gonna start. So we've been saying some pretty blasphemous things. So I'm gonna say this. Why do we need a song with more sitar? Okay. Anybody else would like to say anything?
I would.
More cowbell? I don't know. No.
I'm gonna say this. That song holds a special place to me because I remember reading that Rolling Stone interview Real Time, and he mentions 2 unreleased songs in that interview. He mentions Old Friends for Sale, and then he mentions Strange on the Relationship. And so again, back then we didn't have like social media, updates and things, and Prince really didn't do a whole lot of talking. So a lot of times you read the same articles or magazines maybe 3 or 4 times. And so I just remember when Sign of the Times came out, or when I saw the track listing and that song was on there, I was like, oh, okay, we get to hear this this unreleased song that had just been a title for so long. Of course, it has a sitar and all that stuff. I was glad that when they did the One Night Alone box set and they kind of did the live version, that he had kind of brought that out. Because outside of, up till that point, up until bootlegs kind of started to circulate, so we never really heard the song live or anything. So, I got a special place, I think, for that tune. Could it have been substituted for something else? Probably. Maybe in hindsight, but that's just my take on it.
All right. Anybody else have anything they'd like to say about Strange Relationship? All right. Okay. Moving on. Visions. Okay. I am a massive Wendy and Lisa fan. I bought Eroica when it came out. It had a little 3-inch CD, which had Minneapolis #1, which is essentially Visions. Why did you put this on the box set? Okay. Who would like to talk about Visions?
I love Lisa Coleman's playing.
Yes.
That's it. That's the statement.
Yes, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful song. It's actually one of my favorite songs of all time. Don't get me wrong. I love the song. I love instrumentals. And I always wanted Lisa to put out a solo piano record, which she finally did. This year or last year. I can't remember the day because the months have been blurred in. So, I mean, I've always wanted that. I think Lisa's piano playing is some of the best chord phrasing you've ever heard in your life from only someone like Lisa. So I love the track, but why is it on the box set? That's just me.
I will only add is that I like Visions. It's very beautiful. And it makes me wonder why Fruit at the Bottom is the only Wendy and Lisa song to which I can listen complete. I love Fruit at the Bottom. I think that Fruit at the Bottom crushes everything else they did. But when I hear Visions again, I just wonder, it makes me now want to go back and listen to their other stuff because I could never get into anything else they did the way I got into Fruit at the Bottom. So I think that for people coming to Wendy and Lisa late or may not like the totality of what they've done, maybe Visions can be for them, say, a window into some other things that they've done.
All right. So for me, and I said this earlier today already, but I'm going to say it again because I really strongly believe that the first Wendy and Lisa record, which was their debut, which was eponymous, is one of the most beautifully recorded albums ever by anybody. And like Visions for me is more on par with that record. And then, like for me, I prefer Eroica over Fruit at the Bottom. But we're not talking about Wendy and Lisa because we got to get through these songs. But I do want to say that. So we are going to start off the next song with Arthur. I ain't even going to say nothing. Parker.
Here
It's
we
Dorothy
are.
Parker time.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. So Dorothy Parker with horns. It's for me the greatest gift that Prince could have given me to not put that on Sign of the Times, because with the horns, not only does the horn arrangement get in the way of some of the nuanced moments in the Ballads of Dorothy Parker, but it completely changes the context of the song. And it's interesting to note that of all the years that Prince has performed this song, he's never once, or any other song for that matter, he's never once used this horn arrangement. We know that he's used the same horn arrangement for Controversy Live and for Kiss Live. He's used the same horn arrangement for Rock Hard in a Funky Place with the live version of I Can Never Taste the Place of Your Man, but he never used this horn arrangement. So I think that he knew that it wasn't right for the song. Going back to the his editing ability, when he wanted to edit, he's messed up a few songs for me from time to time. But I just don't think that it's funny. I've been in a couple of conversations about the horns, and I always fall on the side of I do like the horn arrangement, for what it is. It's actually kind of different than what I'm used to from Eric Leeds and Atlanta Bliss. It sounds more appropriate on a Donald Fagen album, or a post Gacho Steely Dan album. It has a kind of like a New York feel to it, but it just doesn't work for this. And even when you listen to the song, it does sound like Prince is kind of trying to make it work the way where he lays it on top of the track itself. But yeah, man, with Dorothy Parker, I really can't say enough about the song. It in and of itself is a singularly unique sounding Prince record, and for that to be the fourth song on Sign of the Times, and in fact the fourth song on any configuration that it's ever was supposed to be slated for, it was always like the fourth song. I believe that he really wanted us to hear the song, and he really wanted to hear the song this way, in this this version minus the horns. So
I agree.
A restrained approach that I can take to that.
Yeah. I will say. Oh no, go ahead, Nicolay.
Go ahead.
No, man, you brother.
Well, I don't think he even ever mixed it. Like, it sounds to me like this is just the version that sort of Eric Leeds put together. Like the horns sound like they're not part of, I think, the mix in a way that make me think it ever got further than the Eric Leeds demo. You know what I'm saying? I think it got mixed right there and then. It's not like I don't know. It sounds like a lot of people here are saying it sounds way different than I think even the rest of the track. And it strikes me more as a demo that Prince certainly never even really touched. I don't think he ever seriously considered it. But that's my theory. I don't know.
I think,
but
yeah, I just think with the tune, the album version kind of being a fan favorite I mean, just over the years when he kind of brought it back out in the early 2000s, I think him being a better musician, whatnot, he, you know, came up with a better horn arrangement, and it just kind of grew from that. But again, like I said earlier, you know, I was, you know, I am impressed that he, you know, just chose to not go with that version and stay with the minimalist version and give us that one and let it grow from that. But, you know.
Agreed.
So, I mean, I agree with everything that you're saying. And I do think I just want to double down on what Arthur said. It's such a definitive track. I mean, the original. And I'm sure, I mean, I'm kind of trying to feel the way I think Arthur feels. It's kind of like I'm sure you're disappointed that this version exists, but I'm not. I actually like the horn arrangement because of what you just said, Arthur, that it actually sounds different even for Eric. And also, I'm a massive Steely Dan fan. So, I mean, I like the song with it. I mean, if I had to choose between the two, obviously I'm going to take the one without the horns. I think Prince made the right decision in terms of, you know, leaving it alone, because sometimes he can layer too much stuff on things. You know, like for me, when they release the line, which I hope they release the line, I really do hope they release the original The Line with Bonnie without all versus the horn version, because that's when I'm going to go crazy.
Or both, please.
Or both. Yeah. So like, but that's one of the problems I'm having, Nicolay, is that when it comes to these box sets, sometimes they give us multiple versions of songs, and sometimes they don't. So I actually just bought the Morrison Hotel 50th Deluxe version because I'm a massive Doors fan. And on that box set, they have multiple takes of, you know, one song. And so I've bought a gazillion Sarah Vaughan box sets where they have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different takes of the same song. It's so incredible that she would never sing it the same way twice.
Right.
Really incredible. But I mean, that's what I want for Prince. Like, you know, if you have 5 versions of the Ballad of Dorothy Parker, I want to hear all of them.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah. Now that's one thing the Miles Davis estate definitely got right. Because on the Jack Johnson box set, you will get like 8 versions of the same tune.
Well,
and it'd be maybe like 10 seconds difference, but the song is like 12 minutes long.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the appropriate environment for that.
Right.
I mean, it's a box
That's what I was
set with
gonna
multiple
say.
things. You know, I'm absolutely happy that we have this as a document to what his process was. In fact, the song's a little longer, and the fade is not as quick, so we hear that extra bit, you know, of musical information behind that. You know, but agreeing with D'Angela about, well, hey, if you're gonna put, well, first of all, they got 4 versions of Hot Thing on this. Yeah. But they have 2 versions of Witness for the Prosecution, preempting the advancement to the next song that we're about to talk about. But they don't have the version without the horns. They don't have the version that without the background vocals, which is you know, my personal favorite. And you get that raw, gritty, you know, guitar Prince. And it's not I guess, you know, everybody's, you know, bootleg favorite, but I really, really, really like that Witness for the Prosecution. And when I saw that there was going to be 2 versions of it, I was really hoping that the 2 versions would at least include, you know, the version that I like, and then the later reworking, which isn't particular to my taste. But again, that's what a definitive box set is for, because you're giving us the document of the what went into making this album. And I do think that there were some blind spots here that we've talked about previously.
All right, Arthur. So take us on to the next song for the prosecution. I love Arthur. He always does that for me. So who else wants to talk about Witness for the Prosecution? All right, C. Liegh.
I cannot hear witness for the prosecution. One, without hearing, Girl of My Dreams, because this is one of the boots, one of the boots when I was collecting. But again, if you're not gonna give me the one without the horns, I don't know what you're doing. It's not that I dislike the one that we have, but sometimes you gotta let a rocker be a rocker. Sometimes you just gotta let the raw energy of the funk express itself. And so I think that having just the one with the horns and not having the very raw, energetic, grind out guitar version, it's another missed opportunity to present the totality of Prince. One of the things I say about Prince is that Prince was a pie chart, and Prince was the type of pie chart that he had more pieces to his pie than most folk. And I think this is the perfect example where maybe Prince has so many pieces of the pie chart that folks are just not able to appreciate all of them, to where historically they can give us what we need so we can truly understand that Prince had more pieces to his pie chart than most folk would have.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to say about Witness?
Well, I'll just make this to the people of the estate. If you are listening, for all future box sets, just give us all the takes. Just go ahead, make like a 12 disc pack. I know that's what it's gonna probably be, but just like do yourself a favor and stop trying to make an album or a set and just give us all take 1, take 2, and take with horns, take without horns, take with no vocals, take with background vocals.
Yeah, you hit it. You hit the proverbial nail on the head, Rick, was what I was going to say, which is really, it's the difference between process and product. But the fact that the product is a peek into the process. Yeah. And I think the more comprehensive that you can be with that, I think that's what really tells the story. And again, we said this at the top. I mean, when you're really very definitive about chronological, even looking at how many times a lot of these songs, when did they start? How many times did he go back to them before they were actually, quote unquote, finished? I think that tells a lot. And I think that's really important to understand when you look at the creative process. So,
yeah. Or they could just start a whole new series of demos.
Right.
Okay. Like the originals, and just do Prince demos and then put them out on demos, like, hey, people will eat that up. So
I actually want to say a lot more, but I won't, and for the sake of time. But I mean,
no, D'Angelo, say it. Say it.
No.
Say it, D. Say it with your chest, D. Come on,
Okay, so let me say this. I do think that this box set was very expensive.
Yes, it was.
And I did not mind paying. I don't mind paying for it. I think it's worth it. However, I'm always trying to figure out who is their audience. Now, if I like Nicolay's term of a super fan, if I personally think these super deluxe box sets should be geared towards the super fan, because they have so many different variations of the box set, and you can, just buy the remastered Sign of the Times. Like, you don't have to get the super deluxe box set. So they have all these various iterations. So when it comes to the super deluxe box set, which is so expensive, there is a core audience for that. And that core audience is us. So why are they catering to us? Now, I know that they're trying to cater to the Purple Rain people. And if you haven't heard me on previous podcasts, the Purple Rain people are the people who were just with Prince during Purple Rain or during his pop part, pop times like Diamonds and Pearls or whatever. The non-Purple Rain people are the people who are there from For You to Hit and Run Phase 2. And we didn't care what Prince did as long as he was making music. And so if you're going to have a super deluxe box set, maybe we need to get a super deluxe box set. I would pay. I mean, I have the Ray Charles box set, the complete Atlantic recordings. Yeah. I would have bought the Frank Sinatra complete Columbia recordings if I could find it. It sold out so quick. And so I want take after take after take after take, just like Ricky said. That is what we want. And I'm turning 50. Like on November 23rd, the world is crazy. I don't know how much longer I'm going to live. There's some stuff I want to hear before I die. I live for Prince. I always have, I always will. It's always been something that I look forward to. I will always buy whatever the state puts out. I'm debating on this record store day of release, since it's not a picture disc, even though it's supposed to be a picture disc. I don't know. That's the only thing I'm like, but I'm still gonna buy it if I can find it, right? But like, please cater to the super fan. We are the ones that are dropping the dollars. It is not the Purple Rain people. I'm sorry. It might be one or two of the Purple Rain people who are rolling in the dough. But in terms of, like who is going to buy these super deluxe box sets year after year, it is the super fans. So that's
I mean, one of the genius things I think the Miles Davis estate did, like they would release the like Columbia years, the first quintet, and it'd be a big gigantic box set, and then they would issue each one of those discs separately. And then you can buy that. And then they did the second quintet years. It was a big box set. And then they issued, Miles Smiles and ESP and all those things separately. And I remember, I was kind of getting into Miles then, and that can be overwhelming. I mean, I'm sure for some, young person that's kind of, like getting into Prince because their parents or uncle or someone older was kind of getting into him. Like you get this thrown into your lap at one time. Like you got eyes like silver dollars, like, oh my God, like this is a lot to kind of digest. And so I think you're right. I mean, there is a core, there is a group, that wanted the Jack Johnson box set, that wanted outtake after outtake after outtake, and they bought it. They like all those Miles Davis box sets sold very well. And so I think, if someone from like the estate is listening, hey, say, there are some of us that would pay for a, 32 disc box set of 86 to 87 of just Prince stuff,
There's also a ton of record store day opportunities here. A ton of record store day opportunities where the things that we're talking about, become these limited edition, special one-off releases that would cater to the crowd that we're talking about, both the super fan and the fan that is heavily interested, because we want them too. It's like it's almost like join the Prince camp. We have cookies, and we have all these things that define why Prince did a Super Bowl concert and in the rain, and it's regarded as the most legendary Super Bowl concert like of all time, or why his Coachella performance was heralded as one of the greatest Coachella headlining performances of all time. But some fans there didn't think that he even belonged there because he's just this old artist. It's like this is also an educational opportunity too. Super deluxe version aside, the singles box got snapped up. I was freaked out that I would actually miss, the opportunity to get one of these 1,987, editions. But I don't believe that only the super fan class has these boxes, right? I believe that some of the newer, born in the 90s, born in the early 2000s music fan who's trying to learn about what made Prince and, why I should, listen to this man's music, wants to be a part of. And I think every avenue, particularly with an artist like Prince, who, my God, if dude had an iPhone in 1984, we would have had, dinner conversations that were recorded, multi-tracked with all the amount of documentation that he did on his own, the videotaping of his club shows, the recording of his rehearsals, the multiple after shows, all the concerts, all of the soundboard recordings that have recently leaked out, to the community over the decades of his career. There's a mountain of evidence to what this man's career was. And I think that it should be exploited in any possible way that it can be, because it's going to be a revenue generator. It just is.
One of the things I can, like a testament to is I remember my interest in Miles Davis was kind of late in life, like mid-20s, late 20s. And so I remember when they did they did the box set to Bitches Brew around like 2000. Yeah. And I remember I had bought it prior to that, but it, wasn't a remaster, wasn't a box set. And I remember somebody was saying like, yeah, like you really need to get the box set.
Right. You always reverse back. You always go back.
Yeah. And so like, this is how this album is. Like you could get the remastered version, but someone is always going to say, you really should get the super deluxe, and that's how it's going to be with all of his stuff, like moving forward. Yeah, you could get the remastered Purple Rain, but you really should get the deluxe. Like you should get the 1999, but you really should get the deluxe. Like that's always going to be the comment I know that follows, if like you see someone that has any like remastered print stuff and then box sets come out afterwards, it's always going to be like a refer back to, well, you really should do yourself a favor and get plug the like deluxe of this particular version. That's just how like we're gonna look at people who have just a remastered version. And I mean, we being all of us super fans, so like like we're gonna be yeah, go back and get this. Like, do yourself a favor, get this.
Can I ask you guys a technology question? Because I'm the least technological person on this panel, but I'm also a very physical person, right? I need a CD, and I'm of the age where the only reason I ever bought a CD is because I couldn't get Diamonds and Pearls on album, right? That was the last. I think that was in that time when they stopped making the stuff immediately on album and everything. In fact, the student said, "Miss McInnis, let me introduce you to something. These are CDs."
Oh wow!
So I literally did that to me in the record store. And I said, "But it's a record store." He said, "Forget the name of it, Miss McInnis. Get a CD." What do you guys think about? Because a lot of people talk about cost and everything. All these things that we want. Are we now not in an age where they could give us all of this in digital so that they could package a super deluxe, right? And say, okay, and I know I would want it. Let me be clear. I would want a physical, but even if they say, okay, look, let's take these 4 or 5 different versions of this song, this super deluxe, so you get a super deluxe in a physical thing. And then all the stuff that you guys, you superheads know exists. We'll do that only on digital. And you guys can somehow, again, I don't know, technically how you would do it. I think that I would be down I would pay for a physical super deluxe. And I did think I would also be willing to pay for a digital super duper deluxe that may not cost them as much money because they don't have to warehouse house it in the same way. Would that make sense or no?
Absolutely. I think that would, like, I know I keep saying Neil Young, but he has basically done that where you log in, he's got his own website or even app if you're mobile, and you literally are presented with this huge timeline that moves, from left to right in time. And every single project of his, broken down by song, is exactly placed along the timeline. You can click it and hear it. It's a high-res audio file that most people probably have fast enough connections, or at least semi, to get decent sounding quality online. And so, yeah, totally. You could literally see, like, this is when he recorded Sign of the Times, like that's where the track will be. This is when he went on the road and did this show. If that show would be available, it would be placed along the same timeline but in a slightly different spot, so you can really see what is what. You see, maybe rehearsals, like, and the great thing about Neil Young is, like, he was an artist, or he is luckily an artist where he is as comfortable. Like, he's a forward-looking artist first and foremost, but he is comfortable looking back. And so he really has given his fans over time just truly, I think, what they really wanted, and he jokingly will say that he even puts the stuff that is like in his eyes like downright bad, just for the sake of history, So that's kind of my hope that the next chapter of this is an online environment where essentially maybe for a small subscription price or something else, you would essentially get access to literally everything, and you can use it as a resource, as a encyclopedia, but also as a playlist. Like if you can make like your own little playlist, like I mean, the sky's the limit. You can add videos, you can add clippings, you can add reviews, you can contextualize every single, sub period, if you will, sub era, and really give people like a multimedia sort of look into stuff. I think that would be the next chapter for me.
I agree wholeheartedly. I've been hearing about Neil Young, and when that site first launched, the first thing I actually said was, "I wish Prince would do this." So I agree. I don't know. I'm kind of mixed about it being purely digital. Audio Magic in the chat said absolutely in terms of digital, but the problem is that most of the fans are of the age that they would want a physical copy. LOL, and I'm that person of the age where they would want a physical.
You and me both.
Yeah. So
and Neil does do both, just to add up. Like he will also release all of it or a ton of it on physical too. So but there's an expense involved, of course.
Yeah, super cool. So we're gonna move on to Power Fantastic. Power Fantastic, before it was released on the hits and the B-side, was one of my favorite boots. I think it's one of the most beautiful songs Prince has ever recorded. And I was surprised and delighted to hear this alternate version, but because of the studio banter, which is what I love about the Morrison Hotel, the Doors box set that was just released. There's a lot of studio banter, and if you're a Jim Morrison fan, he can be pretty. Yes, thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Some colorful things. So I would be curious, in terms of, I know that Prince was very vocal in rehearsal, but it would be great to get more of the studio. Like, was he vocal in the studio? Like, what directions was he calling out? Maybe even just to Susan or whoever was the engineer at the time. So I was really excited. I'm excited most about those directions in the beginning. I prefer the original, the Power Fantastic that was released, on the hits and B-sides in terms of the take. But I am very happy that we have this alternate take. Does anyone else want to say anything about Power Fantastic?
It's just stunning, and I really love in the booklet how the tape box was included and some of the mix notes, and so you can really see just who plays what, and some of the settings even of the equipment. Like, I think that's really what I live for.
I will say it's one of those, and I know it sounds crazy, it's one of those songs that I don't want to hear until I hear it, right? Like, I have it in a playlist, and it's just one of those songs that I don't think about, right? It's not a song if I think, I want to hear it. I've never said I want to hear Power Fantastic. Every time I hear it, I go, I'm so damn glad I just heard that song. And so to give kind of that in studio thing and them talking in the banter kind of heightens it for me. So that's it. It's I just wanted to give props to it that it never fails, right? After I hear it.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I just had a quick question for D'Angelo. So nothing bad. I mean, I've done enough of these with you that I know something about a particular instrument. And so,
the flute. This song is so magical that I don't even know if flute is on it.
Right. That's true. Yeah, you don't.
I honestly don't even know that if it is like the perfect song for me. And also just Prince's vocals. Not what he's singing, because I don't really listen to what he says. The way he sings it, it's incredible. However, that's one thing that I don't like about this particular take. he's much more staccato-y in certain places, like like I'm like, stop it, like don't do that. So in terms of the vocal take, I much prefer the one that was released originally. Okay, we're gonna move on to the next song, and it's one of my favorites, and that says what. This is probably one of my favorite songs that is not a bootleg that I had previously. I had never heard this song before.
Yeah.
And I always gravitate towards Prince's very short songs because this is like less than 2 minutes. I also love Prince instrumentals. And this is also another one of the Cherry Moon reference because he says in that says what. And so when I saw the track listing, this was the song I was like, oh, I want to hear that. I want to hear what is going on with and that says what, only because of that Under the Cherry Moon connection. I just got really excited and I was not disappointed. So I love this track. I have a feeling that only because I've lived with Power Fantastic, I've lived in a large room with no light. Like I know this song like the back of my hand. In terms of like reaching for vault track 1, like this is the song that I want to hear. This is the crowning jewel for me on vault track 1. Vault 1. I shouldn't say track, but vault 1. So anybody else would like to say anything? And if you say something bad about this track, you are this Salon. I'm just sorry.
You know what? It's like the coolest song title.
Yeah.
It's like the coolest song title, and I think I agree with you. Like when I first saw it, I was like, oh, okay, Under Cherry Moon reference. So that'd be cool to kind of hear. It's dope. It's dope. I like that.
I think that anytime that Prince is playing live drums and you know that Prince is actually playing drums, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, definitely that. Definitely.
I think that the idea of a Madhouse box set aside, I think that this tracks like this, are really interesting as the DNA to what formulated into the Madhouse albums. It's a really good document to hear. I think that I have a gripe that has to do with this song, but just not directly, and that's the idea that anytime that there's that Prince does something instrumental and there's a horn on it, that it's like it's jazz or it's jazzy. As opposed to it being, and I believe that genres are useful to start a conversation, but I don't believe in every piece of music needing to fit into some sort of label.
Right.
I don't understand why it's not a problem that Prince was a fusion artist. I don't think that's a bad thing, and that to call everything that he did where he wasn't singing, jazz is really a disservice.
Right.
I mean, Clarence Clemens played on like 15 to 20 Bruce Springsteen albums, but at no time in Springsteen's career that I ever knew of, he been referred to as being like a jazzy artist or a jazzy song. And I just don't think that's fair, and I think that's really limiting to the caliber of songs like this, which I think is less of a song and more of a workout of ideas that eventually manifests into this, whatever this is, if it's Madhouse or if it's news or if it's C-Note, for example.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because that brings up the question: would like Herbie Hancock's Chameleon be considered jazz, or would that be funk? Would Rocket be hip hop, or would that be jazz? And he's
right.
He's he's still Herbie Hancock. Like he's still the guy that did Maiden Voyage, but he did these things too.
Right.
And so
with an artist like Prince, it begs the question: well, why does it have to be either? Why can't it just be?
It just be.
You know what?
Be music.
A Midwestern,
right, exactly.
Black, band-oriented musician.
I think D'Angelo should do a DJ Polish set of just Prince instrumentals. and then let the listeners decide. And she can throw all of these and Madhouse and Flesh stuff on in her DJ mix, and educate the masses on that.
Yes, if I was rolling with and I could just do this all day long, I would do it. I would love to do it. I have to give a shout out to Fred in the chat. He says that the drum sound on Madhouse 8 is sublime. I totally agree. Madhouse 1 in particular is like my favorite Prince drum track of all time. But we're gonna keep it moving to Love and Sex.
Hey, look, maybe our friend Edgar Cruz could compile an instrumental Prince set for us. Including this tune, Flesh tunes, Madhouse stuff, and we can see, as like Arthur said, the progression from stuff like this to C note and stuff like that. So that'd be cool. But yes,
I can't remember who said it. I don't know if it was Harold. I don't know if it was Zaire. I don't know if it was Anil. But someone said that Prince is his own genre.
Love it.
And I really, and that really stuck with me. Prince is definitely his own genre. So I think people should start recognizing that.
Mm-hmm.
So Love and Sex.
That one earlier. That was man.
It was, again, maybe a trip and a half, a door. It falls in that place where Prince is a supreme vocalist, and that R&B stylings, R&B gymnastics are always going to be a part of who and what he is for people who don't. I still get amazed when I read people say, I don't like Adore. And I'm like,
right.
And my response is that you should be with your eyes closed. That's really what happened. and I wonder that when people say that, is there some kind of cultural, social, political thing happening, right? Kind of like Kill Disco. And I think if we all listen to Disco, right, the same thing why you don't like Adore. And so I just think that song speaks. It's a little busy for me. I think that if it was released, I would like some of the vocals, some of the tracks to be pared down. We hear those vocal gymnastics. But I just think it's another historical understanding of who this guy was as a vocal performer.
So for me, Love and Sex was a surprise. I will say that when I think of Love and Sex, I think of the one on the 1999 Deluxe box. Right. I love that song. The one on 1999 Deluxe box set, but this is obviously a different song with the same name. One thing that comes up for me with the song, and I keep looking at the date, it does not feel like a song that was recorded in 1986. And is that just really the date? I mean, because it sounds more like a 1999 to Purple Rain transition track. I also get a little bit of Electric Intercourse vibes from it, just like they feel like cousins or something like that. I love the track. It's a very what I call a Prince, like a Prince in quotes track. In terms of thinking about Prince as a genre track, I know someone in the who was it? I think it was Fred, but someone said that it's not like a fodder track. Here we go. No, it's I've heard people mention Love and Sex as basic fodder, but I love this track. I don't dislike it. I don't love it. I think it's a solid track. I don't skip it. I love listening to it, but I don't know that I'm going to pull out Vault 1 just to listen to Love and Sex.
Yeah.
I would pull out, Vault 1 to, listen to, and that says what. But that's just me. So it sounds like we're done with Love and Sex. All right.
So soon?
All right. Next song, I hope we don't spend that much time on. A Place in Heaven, Prince vocal. Go.
Not a favorite.
Just evidence of, I guess, Wendy and Lisa trying to, expose him to some Beatle type sounding stuff. That's the vibe I got from it, even though he's kind of not singing on it. you know, it does sound like, you know, some Sgt. Pepper era, or maybe post that ish stuff, you know, maybe Magical Mystery Tour for all you Beatle fans out there. Now that's just me. I'm not the biggest Beatle fan, but I am kind of familiar with I think with that catalog. That's just the vibe that I got from it. But you know, it's
Come on,
you know.
I would only add that I would tell folks, listen to that and listen to Do You Lie side by side. That's the only, like, not that I want you to think that this is a great song. I just think that there are some vocal arrangements and some vocal gymnastics happening in this song as well that I think can open the doors about Prince as a vocalist. And I think that a lot of times we don't spend enough time on Prince as a vocalist. I will say this, and you guys can correct me. Prince is one of the few vocalists that his voice did not betray him as he got older.
Yes, that is so true.
See certain people live that we follow for 20, 30 years, and we're thinking, you should just retire.
So true.
Cameo, not gonna call no names. So,
hey man, hey, he was drug and alcohol free and do that to you.
yeah. So that's the only thing I say about that is I think it could be a doorway to people who really like Prince's vocals and the way that his voice matured and stayed around. Because there's something about Do You Lie that I just really love his vocals in Do You Lie, and so I just would like to hear folks talk about those together. Other than that, I'll shut up.
Okay.
I feel
go ahead, Nicolay.
I feel it's so judgy a place in heaven. I hate the lyrics. It's like Judgy Prince, and I don't like Judgy Prince. I don't like Judgy Prince.
I heard that.
But it's also really wordy, and it doesn't really lives on what is it, self-pity, all that shit. I mean, it really is just. I understand why
Judgy Angel Prince.
Man, I just feel like it's not. You're not really saying. I mean, I get why some people see that as like a positive message. I can't spin it that way. I don't really. I just read it as and he's done that a couple times in his career, and I'm not there for that part. I don't like it.
Yeah, I think this is a great example of a Prince song that it's like you don't have to like everything that he does, but you can have a strong case for a particular song, like A Case in Heaven. I've seen some of the comments about the deep message. I believe it was Alana that made that. And the judgy, I'm not really trying to hear that in this way, kind of Prince, it's and still have valid arguments about this piece of music. And I just really think that's so necessary when you talk about when you talk about caliber artists. I mean, I'm always harping on, it's like, artists of longevity go through these periods where it's like they gain people, they lose people come back, in other ways. And, not everyone has careers like that. People, dream about careers like that in any field for that matter.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to take a quick pause in our Silent Time Talk to point out Kim's comment here. So if you haven't seen the videos for the DM40 GB30 Symposium, which is 40 years of Dirty Mind and 30 years of Graffiti Bridge, you need to watch all of them to understand where the Judgy Angel quote came from. So do yourself a favor and go back and look at those and you will see. So going back to Liegh and comparing this song to Do You Lie, blasphemous, Liegh. Do You Lie? I think Do You Lie is one of Prince's best songs, particularly in terms of vocal arrangement. I do not get the comparison here with A Place in Heaven. And you just marred. Now, when I think of Do You Lie, I go think, why did Liegh say this? I don't hear it. Okay, but we don't have time for that. Colors, which we should not talk about.
Well,
You want to know why should we not talk about this?
Yes.
Anybody want to say?
Yes.
Anybody want to say why?
No, you do it.
Yeah, you got it.
So I don't know if you guys follow Michael Howe in terms of he's been doing these interviews with the Super Deluxe Edition website, superdeluxeedition.com. And he did one for 1999 Deluxe, and he did an interview for Sign of the Times Deluxe. So they had certain parameters when it came to the 1999 Deluxe box set, and they had certain parameters when it came to the Sign of the Times Deluxe box set. He explicitly states that they did not want to put any Flesh stuff on here. He explicitly stated that they didn't want to put any Madhouse stuff on here. He also explicitly stated that they did not want to put any tracks on here that had already been released, a la Visions, even though it wasn't named Visions. You know, why is Visions on this track if you're going to go by that? And so for me and everybody should know by now, and if you don't know, I will say it one more time because I'm still upset that The Time and Vanity 6 was not on that freaking DVD for the 1999 Deluxe. It's a triple threat tour. Okay, I'm stopping. So if you're not going to put Vanity 6 or The Time on the 1999 Deluxe box set, because that's not Prince, we all know that is Prince. Like, The Time and Vanity 6 is Prince. That's Prince. I'm sorry, it's Prince. Now, we got Colors. Is this Prince?
No. Nope.
No. This is Wendy, and it's a beautiful song. Don't get me wrong. I love Wendy's guitar playing. I think that she's done some amazing solo work on that first, the solos on that first debut. Wendy and Lisa, they are incredible. I love Wendy's guitar tone. I think this is a beautiful song. Under those conditions, those filters, should this song be on this box set? No.
Nope.
That's all I got to say.
Nuh-uh.
Right. Nope.
Okay, let's move on to the next. Well, we've already talked about Crystal Ball. We don't need to talk about that anymore, right? We're good with that. Now let's get to Big Tall Wall, version 1.
I really I want to say one thing about that song. Like, that's another one of those songs where I think the myth making has just so blown that out of proportion about like how this was this god awful song with these god awful lyrics about poor little Susanna. And like when you listen to it, it's like, yeah, I mean, it may not be, it's definitely not sophisticated, but it's really not a whole lot sort of shocking about. I mean, have you ever listened to 9 Inch Nails and like, I mean, this is really, it's not really, and I think some of the stuff has been so blown out of the water just over the years, you know, when you just keep hearing these like narratives, and I think it's a fairly innocent, like, I mean, it's, you understand why it never came out. It's not a high flyer, I think, but it's not as bad as I think it's always made out to be.
Yeah, I have to agree with Nicolay on this. I mean, I think when I first heard about the song, it was in an Uptown magazine. I read about it, and then it gave a brief description of what it was about. And then since then, you always hear about this song that was kind of possessive. I read about it. And so, you know, it was just kind of possessive in a way. You know, and that you know, I mean, just like, I mean, kind of like Nicolay said, like, you know, it's not the best tune, it's not the worst tune, but I think over the years it just kind of had, you know, I think the myth behind it was more about an emotional type relationship than it was more so than like about the song. But that's just me.
All right, anybody else have anything they'd like to say about Big Tall Wall? Now, I was actually surprised by Big Tall Wall. Like the first time I heard it and it started off, I felt this was pedestrian, not even Prince. It was just like anybody in the drama can make this song. Like this, I don't understand. I do not understand, does not compute. However, when he starts, you know, repeating Big Tall Wall, Big Tall, like when it veers off towards the end, I was like, oh, and then it reels me in and I go, let's make this song longer and let's go there, you know? And so it's just, for me, it's a really great song to show how Prince can take something that you think is so simple and by the end of the song, transform it into something sublime and extraordinary, you know? And I think he did that with Big Tall Wall. And I think it's very catchy too. But I find it's a very strange song. What I mean by that is that the keyboard horns are very cheesy, but catchy at the same time. At first I was like, this is cheesy, but then I was like, you kind of stuck to your head.
And he definitely didn't make it to try to woo her back. I mean, if that was his intention.
Right. That wasn't the one, right?
Right.
Not the one.
Neither was Wally for that.
No. But I do think that Big Tall Wall needs to, you have to listen to it several times. I'm basically what I'm saying to people who might dismiss the track is spend some more time with it. It'll grow on you. And it's not going to be this amazing track, but it will maybe be a track you might like.
And I guess I just like Version 2 better.
You like Version 2 better?
I like Version 2 better.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said it was definitely in his feelings when he wrote that.
Okay, do we really want to talk about A Place in Heaven backwards?
No, I'm good.
I will only say that it's that perfect song where the myth making and the man, and you don't know where the myth making ends and the man begins. And I think it's that for Prince, a lot of times it's seen that different was better than good, if that makes sense. And I don't have a problem with an artist that I love who's willing to do different just because he thinks different will push him musically than good will. And that's the only thing I'll say about that.
All right. So I cannot believe we are to our final song and we still have 18
minutes. Have time left?
And I was kind of pushing you guys because I did not want to skimp on this song. So I know we've already talked about it a little bit, but I do think that it's appropriate that it's the final song for Vault 1. And it's in a large room with no light. When I first heard the song, I knew it as Welcome to the Rat Race.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why won't Prince release this song? Why won't Prince? And then all the bootleg versions I had, it was the crappiest in terms of audio quality.
Yeah.
This was the #1 song that I wanted, in a pristine version of. So I'm going to go on a little rant, but I'm going to keep it really short. So I know the estate, when they decide on which version to put on these super deluxe box sets, they want to put out versions, I guess, that the fans don't already have. Don't do that. We didn't buy the boots just because we didn't want to pay for it. We want the real thing. I mean, we want the real thing. So this kind of goes back to don't be deciding which version. Give us all the versions. And that's all I got to say about that. I think In a Large Room with No Light is one of Prince's best songs. I love it. I could wax poetic, but I won't because we don't have time for all that. And I would rather hear from you guys.
Well, I love this song. I had it probably with the Crucial bootleg, and I've always coupled this song with Sexual Suicide.
Yes.
Probably because of the drum patterns. I think that it says a lot too that later in his career he brought this out. I believe it was it Ricky? Were you the one that referred to Montreux and how he brought this, back out? Where he would go back and find songs in his career that it was almost like the unit that I'm working with now, and we're in a place where I can properly I can work out this song, and going back to I had the same thought, D'Angelo, about he got this in the chamber, but we're not hearing any of this. But then it's like, okay, well, what is he going to put it on? I mean, what configuration of an album is he going to put it on, and is that going to be consistent with what his persona is at this time? Because I'm pretty sure that when I first heard it, it was probably Graffiti Bridge, Diamonds and Pearls era, or something like that, and he's not doing that with this NPG unit. That's just not what he's doing. And I think he had a lot of songs like that. But this one in particular is really special. Because it's a sweet song. Also, you know what? It was a Prince song I could play for my mom.
Amen.
I'd do it that way.
Yeah.
And I really liked it when he did material like that, because he was so closely coupled with the more risque, explicit, and I mean, coming out on MTV in '91 with assless chaps didn't help the argument, but still it was a song that I could play for my mom.
Yeah.
I was lyrically into this song before I was musically into it. I actually didn't get musically into it until the 2009 version. Yeah, I mean, I like the lyrics, but the music didn't. I know, banished. But it was, and I'll say, because there's been some things in the chat, and I'll just say this. I find it interesting that people will say they don't like judgy Prince because Prince has been judgy since For You. And if you don't like judgy Prince, it's not that you don't like judgy Prince. You just don't like the particular thing for which he's judging you at the moment. Because I defy anybody to find a time when Prince wasn't trying to push some message down our throats.
Mm-hmm.
And it just happens that
That's
if
funny.
we're cool with a particular message, then that's not judgy Prince. But if we're not cool with a particular message, that's judgy Prince.
But you're right. It's like we had to.
Okay.
For You.
It's a bit of a stretch here, but
From I'll tell you this. Listen, just read the lyrics of Controversy and tell me that dude is not judging. Read even some of the songs of Dirty Mind and tell me that dude is not judging. It's just that we, at the time, we agreed we weren't the people he was judging. Let's be real.
I mean, you know what? I will say this. I know the one release that speaks to that argument is definitely like Rainbow Children.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people were kind of put off with the undertones of the Jehovah's Witness message, and so they were like,
I agree with that, but only to the point that Rainbow Children was a concept album.
Yeah.
So the whole thing.
Yeah.
Was,
that's what balances it
cohesive.
out. Yeah, it was like, but that's the one time I think people, if they don't agree with the judgy piece from For You up till what was before that, Rave, then that one was the one I think people would say, oh, he's kind of judging on this one. I just think in a large room, or Welcome to the Rat Race, which is what I knew it as before too. If it's one of those tunes that we say, or like we used to say, like back in the day, it's like a great deep album cut. It's one of those tunes like Dorothy Parker where it's I mean, just a deep tune. Like when he says I think maybe you could pass your history class if everything was all right. I just thought that was dope. And then when they reworked it, like Arthur said, like when he got the band that had the facility to kind of like rework it and take it and play with it, it got better. And so just one of those good tunes, man. I think D'Angelo should do another polished solid mix of deep Prince cuts, deep album Prince cuts that would be on there.
Right.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm going to do something one day. I'm one of those people. The one day actually comes to fruition. I know some people do someday maybe, and it never happens. I get to it, and I will get to it. So I cannot believe we are at the end of Vault 1. I am so excited that we made it actually through all the tracks without rushing. And I just would like to give a special thanks to everyone who joined us this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't expecting so many people.
Thank you all.
Because this was really going to, like the way this is going to be going, the next 4 Saturdays, it's just an intimate conversation between Prince friends. I love hearing, and disagreeing about, certain Prince tracks. And this is a lot to cover. This is a lot of material to digest and to marinate on, and it's really important to hear from others to maybe see songs in different light. And so next Saturday, it'll be the same bat time, same bat channel, and we'll be talking about Vault 2. I don't think Ivan is going to be joining us.
Right.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of us will be here, and I hope that some of you will want to come back and continue on this journey with us. So I'd just like to say thank you to each and every one of you on this roundtable discussion with me. And I would just like to say thank you so much for the laughs. The reason why I'm doing this at this time is, if you hadn't noticed, the world is a little crazy right now. And there's not a lot of joy. And I always find joy through Prince, and I find joy through my Prince friends. And so, just for a few hours, we can experience some joy. So I hope that you guys will continue to listen to the box set. But since we have 9 minutes, I'm going to say a little something, because today is Record Store Day. And I hope that you will support your local record stores. I was a massive Tower Records fan, and I was devastated when Tower Records departed the US. I think they're still hanging out in Japan. Also, I was devastated when Other Music closed in New York. And so our record stores are very few and far between. There are a lot of record stores in Atlanta that I absolutely love. I got to give a massive shout out to Moves Music, which is Moves Music. And then we also got to shout out Criminal Records and the ATL, and we also got
Criminal.
Yeah, now we got to shout out Wax and Facts, which was my very first record store where I got a lot of Prince stuff, and Wax and Facts is still holding it down. And also the second place I used to get a lot of Prince stuff from, and I won't say what I got, but I got a lot of Prince stuff, was from Fantasyland, also in Atlanta, and they are still holding it down. So if you're in the ATL, I actually miss being in Atlanta for Record Store Day, because there's still a lot of amazing record stores in the ATL. Okay, Record Store Day. Today would have been a really fantastic day to give Prince fans something more, something that we were clamoring for. I don't think we're clamoring for an unpictured disc. That's just me. I could be wrong, but you could have given us a 12-inch box set from Sign of the Times. You gave us the singles. Why not give us a 12-inch box set? I mean, there's just so many things that you're sitting on so much material. Give us what we want. You could have given us, I don't know, another DVD. I'll take it. I know nobody watches DVDs anymore, but I do. And so if you want to sort of keep it off YouTube and it just have this special disc, there's just so many live shows you could have given us. So just be a little more thoughtful of the Record Store Day. You can take all my money. You can just take it all, but you got to be thoughtful about what you're releasing. And Record Store Day should be special every time, because it's multiple times this year. It's especially for Prince fans, because there's so much in the vault that can be culled to create pretty incredible Record Store Day releases. So with that, let's talk about where we can find all of you, since this is a little different. So you can find me everywhere as Polished Solid. And Ivan, give yourself a shout out. Where can they find you?
Sure, you can find me pretty much anywhere. I go under the nom de plume at IORR03. So that's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever. So yeah, and on Grown Folks Music, writing stuff or making jokes. So
awesome. Nicolay, where can we find you?
Twitter, Nicolay Music. Facebook, also Nicolay Music, and I think that's it.
All right, Arthur.
I put my Twitter handle on my message thingy here, ARRTHURR. I also host a podcast called The Music Snobs, Total Music Snobs on Twitter. It's the best way to reach us. and a new show coming online soon.
Yay.
Yay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because that is tight.
All right.
No doubt.
Thank you.
Ricky.
Oh, you can find me on Instagram. I put that handle on my little name thing. On Facebook, on Twitter, hanging out with Ivan, hanging out with D'Angelo sometimes.
Awesome.
Chatting with Nicolay back and forth on Facebook every now and then.
Yeah, man, we connected on there. It's going to go down.
So that's that.
All right, Leigh.
Unfortunately, I have no social media presence whatsoever.
Wait a minute. Leigh is the public rep for Deion Sanders coming to Jackson State. There you go. He is his press release person.
No, Jackson University, HBCU, Black colleges in the house. But I want to say that two things. I have a website, psychedelicliterature.com. So if you want to pick up my book, The Lyrics of Prince, you can get it anywhere. But if you want to come to my website, psychedelicliterature.com. And we also have a newsletter, but I always have to tell my Prince fans, the Prince fans who come in, it's a highly politically charged newsletter. So it's not just Prince. And the only thing I'll say is that there were some folks who saw this in the back. And so I just give them an up close because a lot of people commented on it.
Oh,
Nice. There it is.
I hand painted this, so I'm surprised I stayed in the lines. So,
Good job.
That's amazing.
Psychedelicliterature.com, you can give me that.
So I also want to shout out. And is this right? What is going on?
You got it now. Yep.
This is Lee's book, The Lyrics of Prince Rogers Nelson. I don't know if you can tell, but it's kind of thick, and the print is small. So if you really want to deep dive into the lyrics, and I got this because I know a lot of you have heard, I don't listen to what Prince says. Sometimes I do. So Lee's going to school me.
Right.
Cool. I'll check out what Leigh has to say. And I want to point this out that Edgar said, because I actually agree. So a replica of the Camille promo LP would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Edgar. What's up, Edgar?
Yes. Hi, Edgar. I am
Edgar.
so with you. I'm so with you. And I just want to thank you, Marshall, for thanking us because you were here from the very, very beginning. So Kim said I was late, but what were the thoughts on the bell? You're gonna have to go back and watch that one. That was probably, I think, the most controversial track from Vault 1 that we discussed. So at the end of this broadcast, what's really great about the platform we're using is you can immediately go back and rewatch whatever you've missed on Facebook as well as YouTube. So next week we'll be talking about Vault 2, and I hope that you will join us. And can we get that info in the description box, please? What info, Mia Boca? I'm not following.
I think Leigh's book.
Oh, Leigh's book. Let's see. It's called The Lyrics of Prince, right? Prince Rogers Nelson. I can't type. The Lyrics of Prince Rogers Nelson. And
I'm looking through these Vault 2 tracks. This might be the one here. This might be the best collection.
You think so?
I mean,
I'm glad you brought that up. I actually think the track 1, if I could only have one Vault, if I could only have one of from the 1 to the 3, I would take 1, even though half of the stuff I don't even want it.
no, you got the ball on here. You got Adonis and Bathsheba. You got Train. Train is on this one.
But you got In a Large Room with No Light on one.
And that is the draw 4. That is this.
It really is.
That is good. Yeah, like that is the gem. That is the sleeper.
Yes.
That's true.
All My Dreams, The Ballad of Dorothy Parker, yes. With the horns, I'm sorry, yes. The alternate track of Power Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes. I Can Never Take Your Man, 1979 version. I don't know. I think one is the one.
So let me ask you guys this. I know before we go, and me and Nicolay kind of went back and forth about this yesterday. It's Gonna Be a Beautiful Night is included on Sign of the Times. Should the version where it was introduced be included on a parade box set?
You mean the live version?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. You need a fan. You need a fan at the table having these conversations. You need an irrational mind, like a good portion of this panel at the table to be like, oh, blah, 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 blah. I understand we have a 7-minute version of Shep Pettibone's remix of a song, but it might be a better allocation to use this for XYZ. I mean, just to be able to bring up those conversations.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm with you, Ricky. I mean, if we're going to talk about development and how things came in, yeah, why not have the Paris show?
Right.
Yeah.
With the original version of It's Gonna Be a Beautiful Night.
Right. And I think in getting ready for the discussion of the next ball tracks, right? Not a lot of people talk about the Done, right? And the plans for the Done. And I think that it just becomes another discussion for us to let people know just how hyper creative this dude was, right? And that's the problem with even those of us who know chronologically, right? That, you know, you think about what is the beautiful experience, right? So there are, you know, you see songs that were for the beautiful experience, right? How many of those were supposed to be on Gold Experience? How many of those were on Come, right? So when you have this thing of the Done, right? Then so I think that this coming discussion of this too, while I'm like, I don't know if it's the best disc, but I think it's gonna be a disc where we're gonna be forced to discuss, right? How much of it can be nailed down what Prince intended what to be, and made his pivot going back to Prince the one-man band.
Yeah.
All right. So I don't want to hold you because we need to go and take bio breaks and all that kind of good stuff. But I hope that you guys will join us next week. We are going to be here regardless. And I really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for spending your time with me this weekend. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, Dee.
Bye.